to see and hear this conversation.
We were trying to develop a technology in which the instructor would not only be able to see all the students are able to see the instructor, but any student can ask a question and every other student will listen to that, and instructor need not respond, some other student could respond to the query, because these are the essences of the case method in the class. So what we were insisting was that unless you demonstrate technical capability to transfer this experience in a virtual classroom, we would not feel comfortable in going ahead with this. So we posed that challenge, and I must tell you that.
Yes? You want another headset for Amit? Power is on? Mic is on?
You tell me, right?
नहीं वो एक्चुअली नीचे से लूज हो गया leave it it's not
अच्छा. No? Please stand by. We are experts in technical difficulties. They used to get that. They used to get that on American TV stations sometimes.
ये मुझे क्या पता?
नहीं वो एक्चुअली बंद किया हुआ है ना सर उसके कारण स्पीकर के कारण
ठीक है.
Close.
One of those days when everything seems to have got jinxed. क्या हो गया यार?
Technology is great when it works. Loose connection, that'll do it every time. Nee, if in doubt, plug it in. After all else fails, read the directions. That's the...
Hi, good evening all of you. Welcome to the session that we are going to have today. It's a fairly special session, as I told you before. We have Mr. David Wittenberg with us, who's sitting on my right, an exceptional speaker. In fact, I must tell you, I've just known him for the last 2 months, I must say, but then I found him to be one of the most exceptional people I've met in the last number of years and in my teaching career. In fact, he's more Indian than a lot of us who are around here. In fact, David moved to India about 20 months back, and he says that he's a chota bhai of people who are actually living in US, who are people of Indian origin. But then he actually runs a company called the Innovation Group. He's the CEO for the group, and he has taken up India as a home country now, and he's making a great contribution to Indian companies by really helping them to do world-class innovations. In fact, he's helped a number of companies, at least one company that I know of who speaks very highly about him is Philips. So that's the first-hand information for me. So I'm not really going to be in between David and you, and without much ado, I'll actually pass on the floor to David, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy this session. And it's going to be fairly powerful with loads of examples and loads of ideas coming your way. So enjoy the session, and David, over to you.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. It's my pleasure to be with you this evening. Amit has just heightened your expectations to an unbelievable level. And in this format, I don't get to do all my singing and dancing and, leaping around that entertains you. But I like to say to just about every group that I work with, I try to be an entertaining speaker. We have a 3-hour session, which is incredibly long. But if all I do is entertain you, that's no benefit. I really actually only have 2 requirements for today. The first is that after this session, when you look back on your balance sheet and you see 3 hours spent with David on 30th of August of 2009, you should not have a negative entry or a 0. You should have a credit, that I should make a deposit into your professional and personal life. And there's one other requirement for this evening. You must have fun. That's an absolute requirement. Anybody have an issue with that? Anyone? Okay, I don't see I see 0 hands gone up, so hopefully nobody has an issue with that. I've chosen since it's your class is on advanced competitive strategy. I've chosen to talk about innovation from a strategic point of view. You should be aware that this is not going to be a class on how to innovate. Rather, because I've been told that you are all rising stars in your organization and you are all aspiring to senior management positions, this is really about how to manage innovation as a strategic asset for a corporation. So we at the Innovation Workgroup, we do both. We actually work with leaders of innovation, and then we also work with people who actually do the work of innovation, but you're more in the former category. So we're going to be talking more about strategic innovation. It's interesting that you actually have competitive strategy as part of your title of this class, because in my background, at one stage before I was an innovation consultant, I was actually a competitive intelligence and competitive strategy consultant. So if you have specific questions about that, we can talk about those later. Let me just share with you briefly what we are going to be doing for today's session. And I have a 5-point agenda, which I think is on your screen now. We're going to talk about what we mean when we say innovation, why it's strategically important to your organization, some of the issues that companies face when they try to bring innovation into the organization, what you have to do successfully if you're going to manage your organization to achieve innovation, and then those are your critical success factors, and then some of the specific techniques that you can use as a manager to actually promote innovation in your organization. So let me take a moment at this time to open up the floor to you, and I'll get used to the technology. You've had a lot of experience, so bear with me if it takes me a while. But I would just like to know if you've come in this evening with any questions about innovation, anything you'd like me to answer. I'll take them down and we'll try to make sure we address them in the course of this class. I'll watch my screen for hands to go up, and we'll take your questions. Something you're curious about with regard to innovation and strategy. Feel free to raise your hand now and we'll get your questions. By the way, Amit has promised me that you're a very interactive group, which helps a lot. I do some of my personal best thinking in dialogue, so dialoguing with you will be beneficial. There we go. Somebody is, okay. Rajiv in Gurgaon. Let's put you on the screen. Great, and we'll get your question in just a second. Let's see. There's Rajiv, okay, or at least part of Rajiv.
Audible?
I can, let's see if you're, I can barely hear you.
Am I audible?
I can hear you, Rajiv. Go right ahead.
Okay. One question or one thought that I would like you to take up as you go through your session with us is to give us, examples as about innovation that you have seen, if possible from slightly different industries. Definitely high tech is one that I'm sure is doing a lot of innovation. But if you can, because sometimes, as we will hear of these processes as to how we as managers or senior managers manage innovation, but I think what we also want to do is to give us that bulb in our mind, as to we want to hear a lot about innovation. I guess that hear about innovations themselves. So that's my curiosity, because that is going to spark some creative thought. It's on one hand good to know how to manage it, but the challenge is how do you spark it? What specific things you do with your teams that you can spark those light bulbs, and then use the learnings that we will have today in the class to actually manage it. So that's one of my
interesting question. We will do our best to answer that, but I want to again caution you, it's not our intention today to cover the specific tools and methods of innovation. So I can definitely give you examples, and the program we have planned is actually more about management examples. What you said, how do you lead the team, how do you spark the team? I can give you success stories where good management has led to good innovation. But you're not going to hear a lot today about how one particular innovator came up with a great idea. There's another interesting presumption you have made that in the high-tech industry they're doing a lot of innovation. I actually have mixed feelings about that. I think a lot of people, and forgive me if you're in IT, a lot of people assume that IT and ITES is extremely innovative. Well, I'll tell you, IT and ITES think they're extremely innovative, but I find a lot of less than best practices at work. So we'll do our best to give you a cross-section of different industries. Thank you for that. Let's go to Anup in Gurgaon. And Anup should appear shortly. What's your question, Anup? When you finally show up? There's Anup.
Can you see me and can you hear me, more importantly?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, perfect. My question is almost an extension of what Rajiv asked, but this is something that I can take away, and primarily I'm looking as a takeaway for me. So this germinates from my experience in working with my present company and leading a team of people. One of the parameters for our assessment, the annual assessment that happens, is do you think strategically and do you innovate? So that's one of the well-defined parameters, and I have a lot of discussions around this. So what I'm trying to understand is, and okay, let me just give you some context. I've had many debates where somebody said they have innovated while I thought it was more obvious, that was the obvious way to go. And I've had those discussions with my leader as well. So is there a thumb rule, or are there certain parameters which one can apply to understand what innovation is in a generic sense?
Yes, and we will definitely address that.
We can take it up from there.
Definitely, we will address that. Thank you, Anup. Okay, Amit Sharma, here in Delhi. Yes.
All right. First of all, we would like to thank you, for... Hello?
Oh, I have to get rid of the
Hello?
one that was there? Okay.
Hello?
Yeah,
Am I audible?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, all right. David, first of all, we would like to thank you for being a part of this session and sharing your ideas on innovation. Yeah, I am not very much aware of innovation. As a layman, I would say, like, what exactly I mean by innovation is if you and your company has little or less resources, if they are low in resources, and then exactly how they can give best productivity in limited resources or low resources. So this is my idea, but basically I want to ask is how exactly innovation can help out the companies which are exactly low in resources, or they are competing on cost, they are competing on giving productivity or whatever it is. So how exactly innovation helps those companies to come up in recession? And because we all know all the companies or industries, how bad they are going on, in terms of merger or in terms of acquisition or whatever it is. So my question is how exactly it helps out all the companies or the entire industry in the term innovation, how exactly it helps.
I understand perfectly. I actually met Dr. Kapoor at a conference of the Confederation of Indian Industry on the topic of management strategic management in a downturn. So definitely innovation is important. Okay, thank you, Amit. And A. Divakar. So we'll put you on and see how you show up. A. Divakar. I don't know, how shall we call you? Divakar? Hello?
Divakar.
Okay, Divakar. Tell us.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you, but you're weak, so speak up.
Audible?
Yes, but speak closer into the mic.
Okay. My question for this topic will be, what are the factors we should look at if innovation is genuinely fit with the strategy of the organization or not?
Great. We'll definitely cover that. Okay. Anything else? Okay, thanks.
I guess for the timing they should be.
Great. No, those are excellent questions, everybody. Thank you. So I think with those questions, we can now go on to our first subunit of today, which I think we've already talked about a little bit. Well, before we do that, I guess I have a slide just to tell you what you're going to learn today, what you should try to remember from today's session. One of the things that people don't understand about innovation is that it really is a discipline. The traditional way of thinking of innovation is lightning strikes. The light bulb over the cartoon character goes on. Bing! Okay, and that's innovation. Well, most of innovation has happened that way throughout all of human history, and many of the great innovations that we've had, the automobile, the television, the light bulb, the telephone, the jet airplane, most of those have come as a result of somebody getting an insight, getting an intuition, and innovating. But the problem is the success rate is very low. Out of 7 million, roughly, the number of patents issued by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Organization since its founding around 1790, in 220 years, 7 million patents. I'll tell you what percentage of those have actually been commercialized? 1/5 of 1%. So if you're thinking that innovation is all about ideas and just waiting for somebody to get a good idea, well, if they get a good idea, they might be one of the 7 million good ideas that never makes any money. The odds are very low that they'll be one of the 0.2 of 1%, 1 in 500 ideas that actually makes money. So we need to look at innovation as a discipline. That's a key takeaway from today's lesson. Secondly, you probably have not considered how vital innovation is to growth and profitability. This relates to both Amit's and Divakar's question. How can we do this if we don't have a lot of resources? Well, it's absolutely vital. And every small business, every squeezed business has to innovate even to survive and then to grow. And if you aspire to become big, you must innovate. And we'll show you exactly why that's true. Does innovation genuinely fit with your strategy, Divakar? Well, if it doesn't, you're probably not going to grow. But we'll be more precise and more specific when we cover that. So the key takeaway that we want you to get out of today's class is that it is really the key to a company's growth and profitability. The third bullet point, as you can see on your screen, is that there are 3 critical success factors, and we'll talk at some length about each of those. And finally, we'll spend a lot of time on the specific processes, the specific policies, programs, and structures that you can use as a manager to bring innovation to your team and to your company. So, the first thing we're going to talk about is what is innovation. So I'll leave the floor open and ask you for your definition of innovation. Who would like to register your idea of innovation? What is your definition? If somebody said to you, what is innovation? How would you tend to answer? Don't all speak at once. Still waiting for hands to go up. Any definition you can think of. It doesn't have to be much. Okay, Purna? Let me put you on there. Great. Tell us, Purna, how do you define innovation?
Of the organization is defined as innovation.
The organization, what is innovation?
What?
What is it?
The best practices of the organization.
Great, best practices.
Yeah.
Okay, try to keep my mic away because I'm echoing through your speaker away from your mic. But that's good. Okay, best practices. All right. Let's go to Visukumar, and in Chennai, I'm going to be coming to Chennai in October for my first visit. So I'll look forward to that. We'll put you on there.
Welcome to Chennai.
Thank you. So what is innovation as far as you're concerned, Visukumar?
It's a paradoxical thinking.
Ooh.
And something you want to do totally against that conventional way what you are currently doing.
Wow, that's a brave statement. Doing things that are paradoxical and totally against the way you're doing them now. I love your thought pattern. Okay, let's go to the next person. Suresh in Bangalore. Tell us, Suresh, you'll come on in a second, and then please tell us what is your definition of innovation. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to put you on. I'll get used to this technology sometime. Please, Suresh, tell us.
Am I audible?
Yes, now you're audible.
Yeah. Innovation is a applied thought or an idea that differentiates a product or a service to the end user or the end customer.
Okay, so the key thing I'm hearing is differentiation. Excellent, excellent. Very good, thank you. Okay, and now let's go to Siddhartha in Lucknow. That's a beautiful city. I actually got to go to a wedding there last December when my wife was visiting, and we just had a great time, and I'd been there once before. So welcome from Lucknow. Siddhartha, tell us, what is your definition of innovation?
Okay, my definition is a new creation, a spark, which, if I extend it a little further, resulting from, say, research, study, or maybe experimentation, focus towards a certain goal, maybe a certain necessity.
Okay, excellent answers, everybody. Thank you very much. Let's Divakar, you've spoken, and Amit, you've spoken. So, I see. Amit is saying differentiation in productivity. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just go to my next slide. When you ask, your answers were really exceptional, group. I mean, I don't get this kind of really reflective and insightful thought about innovation from most audiences. I usually get, and I was going to do the animation, but I guess it doesn't work here. So you'll see some of the answers that I usually get on your screen. People are thinking fresh thinking, new ideas, improvements to products, these kinds of things. These are the answers I usually get. There's one problem with all of these answers. They're all wonderful. I mean, innovation is all of these things. It is designing new designs. It is advanced technology. But the problem is that as a manager, you are going to have a hard time deciding how to manage leading edge design. How are you going to manage new methods? How are you going to manage product improvements? You might say, how are you going to manage doing things totally against the way you've been doing them? Or how are you going to manage, well, best practices, as Purna said, it's pretty, you can manage those. Siddharth's answer, a new creation and a spark, that's a little bit of a challenge to manage. So what you end up having is, as long as you leave innovation fuzzy and unclear, you're going to end up with innovation based on hunches, guesses, and assumptions. And because innovation is based on hunches, guesses, and assumptions, that is why the hit rate for profitable ideas is really only about 1 in 500 from the U.S. Patent Office. Those are all original ideas. They are so novel that they actually were granted a patent by the United States government, but the fact that they were novel and new ideas didn't cause them to become profitable, because they were based on somebody's hunch about what the market would want, or somebody's assumption about what he could sell, or somebody's guess as to what would be a useful or valuable invention. And most of them weren't. More than 99% of them weren't valuable, weren't profitable. So as managers, our job when we talk about innovation is to find a way to manage it. Some of the interesting definitions that I've heard from others are found on the next slide, which should be coming up in a second. The top one I actually heard from, all of these I think I heard from Dr. R.A. Mashelkar, whom you may know as, I call him Mr. Innovation of India. He's a good friend. He was the head of the Center for Scientific and Industrial Research. He was the head of the National Chemical Lab. He's now a world-class scientist. He's in the Royal College of Engineers. He received the Star of Asia Award from the first President Bush. Just an amazing guy. And he has just done wonders for innovation. He's the chairman of the National Innovation Foundation. So all of these are ones that he has shared with me in one way or another. The first one is a really good way of looking at it from a business point of view, that it's about actually making money. It's not just about doing things new and different. I often tell the workshops that I give that, hey, you can invent a way to take care of your toenails. You can invent a way to spend a leisure afternoon with your family. That's lovely on a Sunday. But to be in business, we need to think about turning knowledge into money, and that's what innovation does. The second one, Dr. Michalker actually misquotes. He said, an innovator is one who sees what everybody else sees. So I looked it up on the net. I found out it was really discovery is about seeing what everybody else sees and thinking what nobody else has thought. But that applies, discovery is a key part of innovation, so that's on this one. And then Dr. Michalker himself says, this is a person who says, wait a minute, it can be done. I believe it can be done. And that's what Siddhartha was saying. And that's also what our earlier commentator was saying, paradoxical thinking going against the way. Let me give you also a definition that I recommend. This is my company's definition that we give to our clients. They're free to adopt it or refuse it as they wish. But the idea is 3 elements. It means combining existing elements in new ways to create value for customers. And the interaction is a little bit slow, so rather than ask you why those 3 elements, I'll just explain it. We are talking not about coming up with element number 117 on the periodic table. If that was what innovation consisted of, then none of you could do it unless you happen to be in nuclear science and you haven't revealed that. No, you and I are business people. We're not going to probably be, discovering radio waves. We're probably not going to be, discovering rocketry like Robert Goddard did. More than likely, the innovations that we come up with and that our teams are going to come up with have to do with taking what is already at hand, taking what already exists in the world. The novelty of it is combining it in a new way that has not been tried before, taking an existing technology and applying it to a new problem. Taking a technology that is being used in Germany or Jamaica or Canada and applying it in the Indian context. You look at a company like Kingfisher, and I prefer Kingfisher Airlines. It's India's favorite airline. I just flew on them the other day back from Bombay again. But let's ask this one. What do you think was Kingfisher's key innovation, both in the brewery business and in the airline? Think about this for a second, and let's open the floor. Who, and if Divakar or Amit, if you have a saying, you can put your request in, you can type it in. What do you think was Kingfisher's great innovation that allowed them to grow from being a small regional brewery in Bangalore to being the leading brewery in India with facilities in just about every state except for Gujarat, which is dry, and then also got them to be from nothing to India's favorite airline? What was their key innovation, would you say? Type it in on your request or raise your hand and I'll call on you. What did they do that was new? Now remember what we're saying. In our definition, it's not about coming up with a new beverage. No, beer's as old as mankind, and flying is as old as the industry. But it's about taking an existing element and combining, or 2 existing elements and combining them in a new way. What was their combination? What elements did they put together in a new way to achieve innovation and success? Okay, we're not getting any takers. I don't mind. There's Amit. Okay. So Amit, we'll put you on, and you'll come on in a second. So Amit, tell us, what did Kingfisher do that was innovative?
I think they basically identified the customer needs. What exactly a customer needs in today's market is the best product. Whatever is best in the market. So I think need was already there. We talk about beverages or we talk about flights, but if you can offer something better than others, then I think you're more innovative.
Okay.
So this is just an idea.
Good. Do you want to debate about that, or should I just take it and go on to the next one?
I think I should proceed ahead with Divakar.
Okay, great. Let's go to Divakar. I love what you've typed. We'll put you on. Okay. I see what you have put in your request, so let's see what you think about Kingfisher. What was their innovation? Hold your mic up to your mouth, please. It's too. It's Divakar. It's
I believe
better.
that the position.
Better. Yeah, hold it close.
Is it better?
Yes, it's better.
Yeah. My take on Kingfisher is that the positioning they did for both their breweries as well as for the airlines was the differentiator. Probably everyone else was flying the flights, but the way they have positioned themselves, being the king of the good times,
King of the good times.
Something which have differentiated.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go to Meena now. Meena, I see you are here, and we would like to hear from you. What do you think was their innovation?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, clearly.
Yeah, I would like to talk about the Kingfisher Airlines, since I have also experienced, I have flown in that. See, the entire flying experience is extremely enjoyable. They make you feel very special as a customer. So that is their differentiation that you may not, which I was not able to find in any other airlines. So the idea, their differentiation is making you feel very special and cared for.
Okay.
A customer orientation, and so that is the one.
Thank you. A better customer experience. Thank you. Okay, and Rajiv, let's put you on and tell us, I see your note, so tell us, Rajiv, what you think was Kingfisher's key innovation. And please put your mic in front of your mouth. I can't hear you. Put the mic down. That's better.
Like my colleagues are saying, Kingfisher wanted to make its flagship brand, the Kingfisher brand, to stand for, I think, an experience or a lifestyle, or I'm going to be larger than life from others. If you have a Kingfisher beer, you want to fly Kingfisher, you're living life, you're experiencing the better part of life. We stand for that. We give you that experience. I think that's what they've created, or they stand for.
So you think that was innovative?
Financial difficulties notwithstanding.
Right. But you think that was innovative?
Yeah, I think sticking to the fact that, we don't want to be, we want to be an airline that will give the best experience. So that was innovative.
Brilliant. Okay, let's stop that, and I'll tell you my take. Okay, sorry, Anup, we're going to pass on to you this time. Yeah, that is how I see it. I agree with Rajiv 100%. I think that if you fly Jet, or you fly Kingfisher, or you fly Indian Air, or you fly Indigo, or Spice, or any from Delhi to Mumbai, you will start in Delhi and you will get to Mumbai. If you don't, something serious has gone wrong and you may be dead. So hopefully you didn't die, the plane didn't crash, you got from Delhi to Mumbai. So they're all giving you the same product. If you drink a beer, and personally I don't drink beer, some of you probably do, you can have a Foster's, you can have a Kingfisher, you can have a Budweiser if you're an American, you can have a Michelob or a Beck's, and it's basically, just a fermented beverage, all right? And it'll probably give you a little bit of a buzz, eventually if you drink enough of it. So what's the difference? And we've heard a little bit from the lady who spoke, and forgive me, I'm not remembering names well, that they give a really nice customer experience. But the real innovation was the branding. Because now with the branding, you expect a good customer service experience, and they deliver it. Let me go back to the innovation workgroup definition that's on your screen. They took two elements and combined them in a new way. The story was that when Vijay Mallya was a young man, his dad sent him off to the United Kingdom. And even though he was from a nice Lala family running a brewery, he took a job at a comparatively low level in a marketing organization in the UK. What do you think he saw in the 1980s, I think it was, late 70s, early 80s? What do you think he saw in England? Young Vijay Mallya witnessed women paying 100, 150, 200 pounds for a handbag. Now, why would they pay 100, 200 pounds for a handbag when any good Indian woman worth her salt knows about value for money, and she would want to pay more than 100 rupees, not to think about 100 pounds or 200 pounds. Well, the reason this British woman would do so is because it said a magic word on the handbag. It said Gucci. So, this was not common in India. Nobody would spend more for a Gucci when they could buy the same product, something to hold their cosmetics and their wallet, for just 100, 200 rupees. They wouldn't pay 100 pounds. It's sheer foolishness. It's not value for money, and we Indians, we love value for money. But, you see, Kingfisher Malia said, wait a minute, I'm going to take this European, British, American practice called branding, and I'm going to combine it with India, where it's not being done. Because he had the foresight and the customer understanding to know that at some point, some Indians would pay more for the brand. So now, you can get an inexpensive beer, or you can get a premium beer, which isn't going to get you any more drunk or any more relaxed than the first one. You'll pay more because he's convinced you that it's the good times. And when you fly on Kingfisher, it's because you believe when you fly on Kingfisher, you're getting the good times. The ones who rub your glasses and give you a pen and wipe your glasses for you, and he handpicks all, I have personally recruited every one of my cabin staff, and I have instructed them to treat you as guests in my own home. You've seen that video just as I have many times. I mean, I had friends visiting from America. They couldn't believe that video. They were just thrilled. They thought, I'm being treated like a king. The president of the company is offering me a welcome into his own airplane and instructing his staff to treat me like a guest in his home. So they fly the good times. So the essence of the innovation that made them successful was branding, and it's the same formula of taking something that exists with something else that exists and combining them in a new way. Notice, that's not particularly complicated. And this is a lesson people don't get. They think that innovation is about, microcircuitry or X-ray lithography or nanotechnology. It isn't. It can be. But innovation can often be about the most simple of things if you simply find a new way to combine them. So the point is that none of us in this class, I think, are advanced scientists. We're all business people. There has to be something we can do to innovate, and that means just looking for what's at hand and finding new ways to combine it. The third element, take what's at hand, combine it, and generate or create value for a customer. Do you think there's value for customers in having a premium sense of being treated well on a flight, or a premium sense of when I drink this beer I'm going to have a good time? Well, the proof of the pudding, as they say, is in the eating. These brands have been tremendously successful. True, the airline industry is going through a lot of struggles right now. That's that has changed their revenue and profitability. It has changed customer demand somewhat. Now people are wanting to save that 1,000 rupees. I flew back, even though I flew to Bombay on Kingfisher, I flew back on Jet Connect, and I saved over 1,000 rupees. Actually, I saved about 1,600 rupees. Of course, I spent some of it at the airport buying lunch because, they weren't going to give me a free lunch. But I chose to save the money rather than take my preferred Kingfisher experience, and that's how most of us are going to, as Indians, are going to take that decision in today's climate. But a year or two ago, no, people would pay a little bit extra and travel on Kingfisher. So he really sensed that there was value in the market, and he created and delivered that value. So you don't have to use my definition. You can use any one that you like, but that's how we like to look at innovation. Okay. Before we move to the next, the next unit, I think just to summarize, that innovation is something that is a discipline. It is manageable. It is something that can be measured. It is something that can be promoted and managed. You're not putting it in a straitjacket. If you bring it formally into an organization, you can encourage it and watch it happen. So before we move to the next unit, do you have any questions for me about the idea of the definition of innovation? Any questions? Something is not clear? You want to add anything? Okay, if you're trying to get on and it's taking a little long, then we can come back to you, but I think we'll just move on. Great. So the second subunit we have today is, why is innovation strategically important to your company? And as I've told you already, innovation is the key to growth. You can argue the point, but I'm not going to concede the point, and I'm going to show you my logic. If you have another perspective, fine. We don't impose, but I feel very strongly, and I'm convinced very strongly of this point. This is a chart about what happens in a recession. I'm not sure how clear it is. I think the vertical shaded bars are just a little bit weak. I hope you can see them. But you have two trend lines. You have one chart representing the difference, the delta between the two trend lines, and then you have top to bottom some lightly shaded areas. This is a time chart. I know it's a little small, so it's going to be hard to see. But for the years 1975 to 2007, taken in 2-year increments, where you're measuring two-year change, the blue line represents the corporate revenue growth range of the surveyed corporations, and these are corporations under $1 billion in sales, and that is the average of those corporations. The green trend line on top represents those companies operating during those 2 years, their growth rate. Those are defined as disruptive innovators by Dr. Clayton Christensen, who's one of the worldwide gurus of innovation. So Dr. Christensen found out that those companies which were disruptive innovators, they brought brand new ways of doing things that disrupted and displaced old technologies, their growth rates, instead of 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, and 2%, tended to run in the range of 20 to 70% per annum. Notice that, 20 to 70% CAGR, as opposed to 11 down to -3. Not only did they run better year in and year out, if you look at the downturns represented by the shaded stripes, you can see that even when those average companies were going to zero growth or even contraction, during those same years, innovative companies were growing at 20, 30, 40%. So I always ask people who listen to me, which would you rather be? The company that grows at 3% or the company that grows at 30%? And if anybody in this class at 3%, you can leave now. You don't belong here. Everybody wants to grow more. Innovation makes the difference. That green bar is the year in, year out delta of how much more a disruptive innovator grows than a company that is doing only the same thing. Either at the same thing that it did last year and the year before, or the same things that its competitors are doing, just picking them up later, becoming in effect, me too. I do that too. The advantage goes to the innovator. So this is one measurement that Dr. Christensen's people have done that clearly shows clearly the growth is with those who innovate. Here's another 2 studies that have been done to demonstrate the strategic importance of innovation. Looking at 5-year revenue growth for companies that were just in the Standard & Poor's 500, your average stocks, your 500 important corporations in the U.S., they grew over a particular 5-year period up to about 2004 at 138%. Not too shabby. They more than doubled their revenue. However, looking at those companies which were rated most innovative, they didn't grow at 138%. They grew at 346%. So again, the question, which would you rather be? You're going to be happy with 138% growth rate, or do you want to go for the 346% growth rate? I think the answer is obvious. It should be. And how did they get that way? By being more innovative. Once again, now, revenues are nice. Lots of companies have revenues. Many that have lots of revenues don't have profits. Look at General Motors. Up until last year, it was a $190 billion company, and it's only lost about $72 billion over the last 5 years? How would you like to be the manager that brought $72 billion in losses? That was equal to all the profits they'd made over the past 60 years, all wiped out in 5 years. So don't do that. But so they had revenues, and revenues were growing, but they didn't have profits. So let's look at what affects profits. Again, looking at the study by Business Week and the Boston Consulting Group in 2006, the margin growth of the S&P 500 was 0.4%. Not bad. You want your profits to grow. You want your margins to grow. But innovative companies, 7 times faster. Not 0.4, but 3.4%. So not only do revenues come from innovation, but profits come from innovation. And let's share with you the logic behind that. Okay? Again, this is coming up on your screen now. This is, okay, everybody knows what this curve is, right? You're all MBA students. You all know the product life cycle. Great. You get into origination, adoption or growth, maturity, and decline. Everyone knows that. But I've put a red oval over the one area in the growth phase. Does anybody know why again, the interaction isn't real time, so rather than ask you, I'll tell you. But there's a reason why I've put that growth oval there. If you look at the differential between the top curve, which represents sales, and the green bottom curve, which represents profits, you'll notice that the margin is least between those two. The gap between those two is least during the growth phase. And what that means is, in terms of area under the curve, your profitability is greatest in the growth phase. It makes perfect sense if you think about it from a marketing point of view, from a competitive point of view. Notice that you would probably guess that your profit as a percentage of sales in the middle of the growth phase is approaching 40%. Just looking at the eye, looking by the naked eye at this chart, the gap is only about 40%. You know, the green is about 40% as high as the red. That is a tremendous margin. How many of your companies have operating margins of 40%? It's exceptional. Your average company in the U.S. has an operating margin in the area of 15% and a profit after taxes of down in the 5, 4, and 3% range. So the reason why these profits are so high for innovations is exclusivity. Partly exclusivity and partly just novelty. Mostly about exclusivity. If you are the first to the market with an innovation, if you are the first to develop a better solution that enables you to compete with others, then you command a premium price because you're the only person who has it. Dr. Kapoor loves to talk about blue ocean strategy. He loves to talk about Porter's 5 forces, how the competitiveness when, you know, the cost of switching is higher. When you have the only item of its kind, sui generis, of its own, itself is a type by itself, nobody can switch. You have the only one. So you command whatever price you can get out of the market. That's why video recorders were $300 and $400 and $500 items when they first came out, and now they're $49 for DVD recorders. That's why, you know, everything that when it comes out, television sets were tremendously expensive. Automobiles were tremendously expensive until they became mass-produced and common. Then, as you can see in the product life cycle, the competitiveness increases, differentiation is much less. Somebody mentioned differentiation earlier when, you know, thinking about what gets us to, Suresh had mentioned it, what gets us to innovation and profitability. He's right. Differentiation is achieved through innovation. You can't make a higher margin being me too. You can't make a higher margin selling a commodity just like everybody else. Let me give you a success story. Somebody had an idea to sell a commodity for more money. This was a very common commodity in the United States a few years back. It was so common it was nicknamed mud. The commodity I'm talking about is coffee. You could wake up and make it in your coffee maker. You could get it at a coffee shop. You could get it from a coffee dispenser, from a coffee machine. It was everywhere. And the value of a cup of coffee back in 25, 30 years ago, retail was about 50 US cents. In today's money, that's 25 rupees. So, somebody says, I don't want to charge 50 cents for a cup of coffee. I want to charge $2.50. I want to charge 125 rupees, not 25 rupees. All right? How can you do that? How can you sell the same cup of coffee for 5 times as much? Well, if you're only doing the same thing that your competitors are doing, you can't. Nobody will pay you $2.50 for a cup of coffee if all you're doing is selling another cup of coffee. Maybe the bean is a little bit different. It comes from Mexico or Vietnam or Colombia. It doesn't work because everyone says, no, I'm going to go for value for money. I can get the same cup of coffee and almost as much. By the way, while I'm telling this story, type in, if you would, a request and tell me which vendor of coffee, which coffee seller in U.S. was ranked with the most delicious coffee. This is just a trivial question. Which coffee seller in U.S., and I think you would know this brand, has been rated by coffee drinkers as having the most delicious coffee? Type it in, and rather, I won't call on you to speak, but type it in on your screen under your request with your first and last name, and we'll see who people think. Okay, so this guy said, all right, I can't get a lot of money for a cup of coffee if I just do the same thing as my competitors are doing. So he went back and he innovated. He came up with a really deep insight, which is the key to innovation. And he combined 2 technologies. All right? His insight was nothing to do with the beverage. People were trying mocha flavored. People were thinking vanilla flavored coffee or chocolate flavored coffee, or all sorts of things to do to coffee. They were thinking putting coffee in a bigger cup. That was one of the innovations. They were thinking putting coffee in a refillable cup. Your petrol pump would give you a refillable cup of coffee so you could go back and get more. All these vendors were there. This guy had a different insight that had nothing to do with the beans, nothing to do with the brewed coffee. He said it's about the consumer. It's about the consumer, the experience, the user experience. He said, I think people really would love to have a cup of coffee in a third place. Not home, because I get hassled at home. My wife and my children hassle me, or my husband and my children, they hassle me. Not the office, because my boss and my coworkers and my customers are hassling me. I need somewhere to go to get away from the hassle. So I want to go to another place and have a relaxing cup of coffee. So that was his insight, is that people had busy lives, lots of pressure. They needed a place to relax. And the technology that he brought to those harried Americans was something called the French coffee shop. He was in France, and he saw this place. He thought, this is pretty funky. The chairs don't all match. They're not all made of plastic and steel like American chairs. It's not all linoleum and all sorts of artificial things. It's natural wood. It's fabric. The smell of this place, it's delicious, and there's some cool jazz music playing in the background, and all these beautiful, wonderfully dressed French women are hanging out here. He liked that French coffee shop. So what he did is he brought French coffee shop technology into America to meet an insightful need that he discovered that nobody else had realized. They all knew about what to do to make coffee taste good, but they hadn't innovated around the user experience. Well, when he came out with his innovation, which, as many of you have recognized, is called Starbucks, he hit the nerve. He got it right. He had, like Vijay Mallya understood that some Indian consumers would be willing to get off of their traditional, get me the cheapest possible value for money. Some of them would pay more just for the brand image. His insight was that people would pay more for the coffee if you gave them a nice environment. And the moral of the story, the punchline, he has 15,000 outlets. Would you like to be the one who comes up with an invention that comes up with 15,000 outlets for your business? A million new customers? I think you would. But it was a simple insight, and the innovation, as we told you, was just taking 2 unrelated technologies, coffee drinking and the French coffee shop, or busy people and the French coffee shop, and putting them together. And did it create value for customers? I think you know that it did. By the way, we've had 4 votes. Everyone thinks that the most delicious coffee, as rated by American drinkers, is coming from Starbucks, and I'm sorry to say you are wrong. Believe it or not, the most delicious coffee, as rated by American consumers the last couple of years, comes from, wait for it, McDonald's! Woo! Surprise! No, it literally was. McDonald's won the competition. So again, now, have other people imitated Starbucks? You bet they have. We don't have Starbucks in India. We have Barista. We have Cafe Coffee Day. We have Costa Coffee. I don't know what you guys down in Chennai or Bangalore have. Some of those are national brands. There's Black Canyon Coffee in China. All those are imitations of Starbucks. And just as you can see, as predicted by the product life cycle, the competition has gotten more intense. The margins are shrinking. And eventually that market will be saturated. But look at the growth that Starbucks enjoyed by coming up with the innovation. The challenge is their innovation isn't unique enough, or I shouldn't say unique is not a relative term. It isn't differentiated enough and original enough that other people can't copy it. Didn't matter though. For the time that they were leading the market, they made millions. And I think you would like to make millions, if not billions. Eventually it may peter out, but for the time being, they made billions. And that's the value of innovation. That's why innovation is the strategic imperative of every company. That is really it in a nutshell. That is the basic logic. It goes back to something we learned as children. You have to be you have to be different to be better. Otherwise, you're just the same. You're just me too. They have a mobile phone carrier, I have a mobile call carrier. They have a hotel, I have a hotel. They are selling transmissions, I'm selling transmissions. It's just me too until you come up with something that's demonstrably and creatively and innovatively better, and the proof is it really delivers value for somebody. So, at this point, that's the end of that point, that sub-lesson. Does anybody have a comment or a question or a feedback or a doubt about this idea of the strategic importance of innovation? Why doing things different or better is important? Any questions, doubts, comments you want to add? We'll wait for just a minute. Should be pretty clear. I mean, I don't think anybody here chose the 0% rate of growth. I don't think anybody chose the 138%. Suresh has a comment or a question. Let's go, Suresh. Tell us what's on your mind.
Are there any industries where innovation is not essential and still remain profitable?
Good question. Everyone heard that, I take it. When you are dealing with a commodity business, such as atta or chaval or oils and things like that, you can make a living for many years just by doing the same thing, delivering the same thing. But that doesn't mean that it's not essential. The point is, you cannot achieve higher margins and you cannot achieve anything other than organic growth. You can't fight with your competitors for market share. You have no advantage over them. Whatever you do, they can do. Whatever they do, you can do. So you have a red ocean. The competition for market share is like trench warfare. You can bring out all your guns and you'll take 10 meters of ground, and then the next year they'll bring them all back and take 10 meters back from you. So is it essential to survival? No. You can survive. You know, the clothing store in your neighborhood, in your colony, has probably been there, you know, for 20 or 30 years. He's not growing quickly, but he's making a comfortable living, and he's happy with that. So he doesn't need innovation unless he wants to grow. He can survive without it. Now, think about what I just said, though. You can still innovate in even a very mature industry, even in a commodity business. I was just with Marico in Bombay. What did they do in edible oils? They came up with a new formulation and a new branding called Safola that went on to dominate its market. I use it in my kitchen. And by the way, I think I'm coming back through your mic, so you want to hold your speakers away from your mic, Suresh. So even in a business that, or look at the one example I just gave, you would think restoration, restaurant business. Oh, everybody's done restaurants. It's the most common startup. It's the most common failure in U.S. of all new business startups. The lowest success rate. And yet, Starbucks, by getting a really deep insight that nobody had, came out with something that made billions of dollars. So it's the quality of the innovation you bring that can make a difference even in a commodity business. So there's no business where you don't want to innovate, but there are businesses where you can survive for a long time without doing it. Is that clear? Great. Okay, we'll hang you up and we'll see what Siddhartha has to say. Okay, Siddharth, you should be on the screen in a second. There you are. So tell us, what is your comment or question?
Yeah, sir. My query is that right now in the market, if we are having more than a single supplier of a instrument, any instrument or any commodity, which has having a similar type of ingredient. Suppose if it is a retail market, which is already being using the same type of product. Suppose of a Haldiram namkeen is being sold in whether in a Haldiram's showroom or in the Big Bazaar or in some other outlet, where the price is also the same, but the commodity sales varied from place to place. So the locations are also, suppose if they are in the same metro cities, there are different places, but the sales volume are different. So how the person in both the scenarios has to handle it out, whether this type of business in this commodity, whether I have to enter it up or not, or how much the proportion it is effective or profitable to me. And the next query is that how frequent in a business the changes are being required. Suppose if it is already in a profitable market and the market is already been gaining it up and they are already increasing its sales. Suppose a Maruti, which was already increasing its once only it has turned into a red. Always it has come in, otherwise in the black throughout from the last so many years. But we are continuously changing it up because we are in the monopoly something up till 97, 96 before Hyundai or Matic enters in the market. After that, the changes have started entered into our market. But the market has already been so. If we keep on varying the scenarios in the market can't be able to respond, or we can't take the feedback of that changes. So how frequent the changes have to take place? If it is not desired, also the changes have occurred, or something like that.
Okay. Let's talk about both of those, and I'll caution everybody, try to keep your questions short. We don't need a speech, we really need a question. But those are two good questions, and now, because it was so long, I have to try to remember what they were. The second one I'll take first. How frequently do we need to innovate? The rule of thumb is that if you're doing well, then continue what you're doing. But you have to look ahead. This is a course in competitive strategy. Strategy is forward-looking. You want to say, not how is it today, how is it going to be tomorrow? And if you're smart and you look into the future, you can be like Starbucks. You can say, okay, we can grow up to a certain point. But now, if there's a recession, if there's increased competition, if margins narrow, if we don't innovate for that scenario, our profitability will drop, our ability to grow will drop, and we may actually reach decline. I wouldn't be surprised to see Starbucks declining in revenues in the next couple of years because they've reached a plateau and now other competitors are ahead of them in a lot of markets. So if they had the foresight to keep innovating, maybe they could extend that. If you look at those product life cycle diagrams, they have that maturity and decline. The challenge for innovators is find a new innovation to put on top of the old one, to start that growth curve again, to start that product life cycle again, so that the new technology or the new addition ends up increasing your growth rate. Otherwise, you will inevitably go into plateau and eventually decline. Look at the automobile industry in U.S. for another example. So the answer is, you don't have to make radical changes for the sake of radical changes every month or every 6 months or every year, but you must always have the future in mind so that when you see the trend beginning to level off, you are ready with your next innovation. You don't have to launch it prematurely, but that's your goal, is to keep that growth rate constant. So I hope that helps. It's not a rule of thumb answer, except that as you're monitoring your performance, your job is to keep accelerating. So whenever you have an innovation that generates value, bring it out and extend the curve. If you have a new business idea, you move into a new business area. Now, going back to your prior question, and it was mixed a little bit because you talked about, for instance, a food item which might be for sale in different locations in the same metro, and then you talked about Maruti and how they've gone into the red. But you know, the issue really is, in my opinion, understanding the why. This is the question that rarely gets asked in business today. This is the strategist's question that most business executives who are preoccupied with delivery and performance, they don't often stop to ask the why. If there's a different distribution pattern or a different revenue pattern, you have to go back and ask the why is it so? What is going on differently in this retail compared to this? Is it point of sale display? Is it the quality of the foot traffic? Until you know the why, you probably don't have the good insight. And you might try to do what most people have traditionally innovated. They would have a hunch about why the problem was there, and they would have an assumption-based solution, and they would innovate and it wouldn't work. Let me give you a lovely, lovely example of this. This is from iFlex Corporation. They were told by one of their customers, gentlemen, we love your bank management software. We love your ATM management software, but we're having a problem. And the problem is transactions are timing out. Is it? Okay, well, can you help us solve this problem? And iFlex said, sure, we'll try to figure it out. Now, they did some research and they found out that some transactions were timing out, but not all. And the ones that were timing out were in a given demographic segment. This demographic segment, it was ladies between the ages of 40 and 55. So I'll ask you, using your best judgment, type in on your request sheet, and I want to watch these come up, what was the reason why transactions on ATMs were timing out, not completing, for ladies between ages 40 through 55? Why were the transactions timing out? Okay? You put your answers on the board, and then I'm going to come back to this. But my answer to you, Siddhartha, is that it's really about getting to the why. And some innovation may solve the problem, or you may discover a pocket of excellence, a best practice in one location, and then you can spread it to all your locations. So that's my answer. I can't tell you sitting here why it's selling more here and more there. Going back to the Maruti example, I would think they would want to be innovative as much as possible. You see what has happened with the 13th most innovative corporation in the world, our friends at Tata's. They've brought out this new thing called Nano. Incredibly innovative. And how many are they going to sell? They're going to sell 1.5 lakhs of vehicles every year. Now, if you're Maruti, are you happy that Tata's is selling 1.5 lakhs of low-value vehicles, of low-end vehicles? No. You've had the 800 for so many years. You should dominate the low price segment, but they allowed Tata to take a jump on them with a lower price vehicle and better functionality. Tata has innovated for customer value. Maruti missed that opportunity. Now they'll catch up. But what is the good of Maruti of letting the other people innovate? They need to be the innovators. So they were probably just doing the same thing, updating their cars year by year. Nano was a revolutionary new concept and innovation. So I hope that helps. Okay, we'll release. I only see 2 lessons. Why did these transactions time out for the ladies? Give us your guesses. Give us your analysis. Now we'll go to Sandeep's question, and we'll try to figure out what he wants to know about the logic of innovation being essential.
Okay, I just have a question regarding your statement that in some of the industries we do not need innovation. Somebody can survive in such an industry for a long time.
Yep.
But over a period of time, in such a case, what will happen is that somebody else will come with an innovative product, and there is always a possibility that this person will lose his business. And I think you already answered that question with Maruti and Nano example, where Maruti did not innovate to come up with something cheaper than 800, and now Tata has come up with Nano, and Maruti is still not able to release anything at that speed. Though there is a big market with Tata being able to sell only 1.5 lakhs cars, and so I think one should always look at possibility of improving and addressing different segments through innovation. Otherwise, somebody else will be there who will innovate.
Exactly. Your point
take
is
your market away.
Your point is extremely well taken, Sandeep. And notice the point was that you can survive for a long time without innovation, but you can't grow. And you're quite right. Eventually, you can go out of business. My adopted Indian dad, Amit mentioned my Chota Bhai. He was my batchmate at business school in U.S. I'm an honorary Gupta, if anybody's interested. My adopted Indian dad, his dad, S.C. Gupta, was an executive in Indian telephones industry. They were great at making wired lines. Would you like to be in the wired line business today? No. Somebody came up with mobile and put ITI out of business, and that's what it is today. It's dead. So yeah, you can go out of business if you don't innovate. Thanks, Sandeep, for that comment and that question. Okay, so now I'm looking at the various. Okay, here we go. These are the usual answers I get. Somebody was saying they couldn't figure out how much to withdraw, so the ladies couldn't, so their transactions timed out. Okay. Somebody said the ladies couldn't remember their PIN, so they timed out. And then somebody said they have slow reflexes and slow responses. Somebody said the women in 40 to 55 have weaker eyes. Another one says ladies are slow. And then somebody said they mistook their PIN number, okay? Well, your secret is safe with me, class. I won't reveal this. Some of you, I think, would have ladies in your life, ages 40 to 55, maybe an auntie, maybe a wife, maybe a sister, maybe a cousin. I will not reveal to them that you have just called women in their age range stupid, forgetful, physically slow, blind. I won't tell them that you have just insulted them, because let me assure you, they're not going to be taking it kindly if you reveal your thought and your hunch and your guess about these ladies. Now, the fact of the matter was, if you had tried to solve those problems, like you would probably have a better PIN memory system. You would have, I don't know what you would have for slow reflexes. Maybe you'd have an automated arm for the ladies to quickly put their answers in. But you would be solving the wrong problem. Let me tell you, they used one of the best practices in innovation to solve this. They used customer observation. And they went to these ATMs in that country, and they watched the ladies between 40 and 55 doing their transactions. And they discovered that the problem was not that they were slow and not that they were stupid. You wouldn't call your cousin or auntie or wife slow and stupid. The problem was, they would never admit it if you asked them, but they were vain. They were vain about their appearance. Because as Rajiv has rightly noted, past the age of 40, we all begin to experience presbyopia, elder vision, so that our near and distant vision have to be corrected differently. So even if we see perfectly distant, we'll still need reading glasses, or even if we can still read, we'll need distance vision. So these ladies who were becoming more nearsighted, their vision was not as good. At home, it was no issue for them. They would wear their specs. But in public, no thank you. I'm age 40 to 45. I'm not an old granny yet. No thank you. I don't want to be seen wearing my specs. I'm too vain. Now, they would never tell you that if you asked them, but they were watching the ladies do their transactions and seeing them kind of do like this. And they realized what the problem was. So instead of all the elaborate innovations you could have thought up, a new instruction manual or, better instructions or new equipment, the fix was so simple. All the innovation that was required was making the font on the screen larger, and the problem was solved. So this is a good object lesson to you. Don't innovate based on hunches and assumptions. Go out and get the facts. Go out and get the true story so that your innovation will actually solve the problem, actually create value. Okay, so now you know the story about why I said to, Sandeep, or that he should go out and observe what is going on in these different city locations to find out why it's selling so well in one store and not in some other. And that's why innovation is always useful, because we want to combine existing elements in new ways, and we want to create value. If we don't have insight about what's value to the customer, our innovation won't deliver value, and the customer won't buy it. Hope that's clear. And I think we can move on now. Actually, this is probably as good a time as any to take about a 10-minute break. We're about halfway through. So I have 7:18 on the studio clock, and we'll close for 10 minutes and come back and join you at 7:29. Let's say 7:30. Okay? Thank you for your kind attention so far and your good participation. Enjoy your break. Yeah, you can start. Hello, everybody. Hope we're all getting back from tea break. I did give us. I'm enjoying the interaction with you. I hope you're feeling the same. I am finding it a little unusual. I'm used to just calling on people and getting an immediate response. So it's taking a little longer than I planned, so I'll apologize. Yes. This mic? Okay. Is this better? Okay, great. So I'll apologize in advance. There'll probably be a little less of give and take in the rest of the session, because we have to get you out of here by 9. I would prefer to keep you till 11 or 11:30, but that's not permitted. So let's make sure we cover material and you can get the ultimate benefit. If you can submit a question in writing so that it becomes apparent on the screen, I may have a chance to see that and address it as we're going. But I probably will be asking fewer questions for you to answer as we get going from here on in. So I hope everyone is back with us. We're going to start back in and go to, let's see, close that, I think. Yeah, it's okay, I hope. Okay, so I want to go now to my presentation and resume where we left off at slide number 13. Okay, slide number 13. I think it's over here, yeah? Okay, great. So now we're going to talk about some of the issues that each company faces as it decides whether and how to use innovation. And I think this was a specific question which came in by Divakar. What factors determine if innovation is a genuine fit for your company? So we'll definitely try to address that in this section. Okay, there are 3 key issues that we teach that you will face as you make decisions about whether and how to implement innovation in your company and your organization. Basically, you can see them on your screen. It has to do with your tolerance of risk versus your desire for reward. It has to do with the decision of whether you want to be inventors or acquirers of technology. And then there's a decision whether you want to do your innovation inside in a closed fashion or open with the rest of the world. Let's talk about each one of those in a little bit of detail. Obviously, if you decide that you're going to be innovative, you're going to have to spend some money on it. This is one of the reasons that Indian companies in general have been less innovative than their peers in the more developed world, because there seems to be, culturally speaking, less of a desire to invest in what is uncertain, less of a desire to put money in and hope that there will be a good result. Most of the companies I've dealt with in India have a history, at least, of wanting to invest in what's proven. I think you may have seen that in your own careers. If you've ever switched companies and gone and applied for a job at another company, my guess is that the hiring manager has said, do you have experience in our industry? When I go into companies, they often want to know, have you done innovation in automotive? Have you done innovation in pharma? And if you read my company's website, you'll say, well, your industry, we've probably done it, but not too much, you have to hope. And the reason for that is simply this. If I know all the wisdom of your industry, then I can't bring you innovation. I'm not going to innovate for you because I just know the way it's already been done, and I'll just do it the way it's already been done. So it takes a different mindset to say, tell me what we can do that isn't being done and that hasn't been done in our industry before. That's what you sometimes need to do to innovate. And who was it that Siddhartha said, no, somebody else said earlier, thinking totally against the way things have been done in the past. It takes courage. And a lot of cultures, conformist cultures like China or Japan, it's very difficult to rock the boat. The Japanese have a saying that the nail that sticks out is the one that gets hammered down. And nobody wants to get hammered down, so you just fit in and don't stick out. I think India is less conformist than that. We've had a great history of innovation here. But take, for example, my client Reliance Industries. Just about 2 years back, Mukesh Ambani said, we are going to become innovative. And one of the markers he made up his mind on at that point, he said, up until now, Reliance has been a licensee of technology. Our philosophy has always been, you invent it, you prove that it works, then we'll buy it. He says that's going to change. Instead of Reliance being a net importer and purchaser of other people's technology, we're going to start inventing new technologies and marketing them and using them and marketing them to others. That's a radical shift. And that's India's largest private corporation. So even they were of the mindset, no, we don't want what is uncertain. We want what is proven elsewhere, bring it in. But Mukesh himself realized that for the future, to grow and to get where we want to be at the next stage, that's not good enough. We need to innovate inside. So, recognizing that there are high potential rewards, many of us can look at, as managers, at ways of increasing our tolerance for risk, because you have to consider what happens if you don't innovate. And just before our tea break, we had a great discussion about that. If you don't innovate, I mean, Kingfisher innovated, look what happened to them, and then look what happened to Air India. I couldn't believe it. In one of my workshops in Bangalore once, a fellow said, yeah, but Air India couldn't do X, Y, and Z. I said, what nonsense. You're defending the management of Air India for losing their market share from 70% to 30%? Remind me never to hire you as my MD. If you think it's okay to lose 40% of the market to your competitors by inaction, by failing to innovate, by failing to react to the market, I don't want you as my manager. That's not a very strategic view. How many of you are going to get a reward for cutting your market share from 70% to 30%? Obviously, it's pure nonsense. But in his view, it had to be excused. It wasn't okay to criticize. It wasn't okay. And that's one of the polite things we do in India. We're very against saying really harsh things. I'm a stupid American. I put my foot in my mouth and I call him as I see him sometimes. So I'll try to be more polite about that. But there's a beautiful example in Air India of the cost of not innovating. The competitors innovated and they got the market share. Air India continued to do things the same way and it lost the market share. So yes, there's a risk in innovating, but and now they're doing it. Now they're switching to an all low-cost airline. Now, after they're practically bankrupt and needing life support from the central government, now they're actually thinking, oh, it's time to innovate. How much better would it have been done if they'd done it 10 years ago? You see the difference. So when you're evaluating risk versus reward, you have to consider what is the risk of not innovating, and then you might be more predisposed or more disposed to actually coming up with an innovation and taking some risks. The next issue is the one that I just mentioned in connection with Reliance. Do we want to invent our own technologies, or would we prefer to acquire them after others invent them? Well, one of the factors that affects risk is this time horizon. When you do R&D, you're usually looking at a long, long payoff period. Most strategic plans are 3 years in corporations. I think that's far too short. Some are 5 years. Some research and development projects don't pay off for 10 to 20 years. That's at the extreme end. I think in my experience managing R&D, and I was manager of technology planning at a Fortune 500 company once, if you're looking at projects that have a payoff horizon in the 3 to 5 year range, 3 to 7 years, you're probably pretty sound. If you're doing less than that, nothing wrong with it. If you want projects that'll pay off in 6 months to 18 months, 2 years, 2.5 years, no issues, but you may be missing some major things that are going to be affecting you. So from a strategic point of view, we usually recommend that you have a portfolio, a mixture of immediate development, which can be done using what you know today, some R&D, which is focused on 6 months to 24 to 36 months, and then some that's even longer term, depending on your industry and your technology. You want to be having a mixture of technologies that are going to work for you. So, but you have to understand that if you take that on, you will put out money before you get in money. It is a long payback horizon. So if your balance sheet is not strong, you may not be in that position. In fact, some incredible percentage of worldwide R&D spending, something like 80% of worldwide R&D spending happens at the 100 largest companies because they're the ones that have the resources to do it. Having said that, you can still do some sort of research and development in just about every industry. Doesn't have to be chemistry, doesn't have to be engineering, doesn't have to be pure science or anything like that. Even in technologies like education, technologies like retail, where it's not at all about formulas and equations. There's research you can be doing into things like customer experience. The other thing to consider, though, whether you want to invest in in-house R&D or to acquire, is if you do come up with an invention yourself, as Mukesh said, you can make more money from it if you own the intellectual property. And the other thing to consider is that if you go out and buy a company to get its technology, as opposed to just licensing in the technology, the track record of mergers and acquisitions is pretty poor. The majority of them, I've heard very high figures, some as much as 85% do not add or create value. That's a pretty shocking indictment. So if you're looking at acquisitions as the way to get your technology, you may have to be extremely careful about how you go about it. And so it's not that you only do your own R&D or you only use M&A. Usually there's some mix involved, and you have to be flexible depending on the market opportunities. But from a strategic point of view, this is an issue you face with regard to innovation. How much of it are you going to do self-developed, and how much are you going to buy in from the outside? The third strategic, the third one is inside or out. Should be coming out. No, I guess not. I have to do it here. Okay. Yes. Open innovation is actually a rather new term. This refers to things like Linux, which was developed by a large community of programmers, of application developers, working in extremely widely distributed locations, critiquing each other, offering improvements to each other's work, and testing each other's work, so that this loose network of inventors came up with an amazing operating system that in many ways is considered simpler or even superior to Windows, and certainly costs a lot less. You can actually get it free. Now, this is the model of open innovation, or one model of open innovation. Companies also have the option to use open innovation as opposed to only inventing in their own homes, inside of their own organizations. Some of the issues are, you may have a feeling that, hey, if it didn't get invented here, it's no good. That's the NIH syndrome, not invented here. We're the experts. We know everything. We're the brightest people on the planet. And we know our industry, and we know our technology, and we know our customers better than anybody else. You can't tell us anything. If you invented it, it's inferior. If we invented it, it's superior. And if that's your attitude, you will probably go the way of the dodo and General Motors, because that's exactly what they thought. I was very interested to note that probably the highest reputed consulting company in the world, a $2 billion consulting company called McKinsey. I'm sure you've heard of them. They fired GM as a client. That's right. One of the biggest corporation in the world at that time, 150 billion, later went up to 2. They fired GM because the GM people wouldn't listen to them. Who was right? Well, I think the proof of the pudding is in the eating. GM went bankrupt, lost billions of dollars, and McKinsey is still profitable. So you may have the feeling of not invented here, but my advice is get over it. I like to talk about Procter & Gamble, which is a great example of open innovation. But they used to feel that way. They were quite insular for a long time. In fact, I've just been reading a book that mentions the interactions that the author had with the P&G management back in the early 1980s. And they were still stuck in the mud, closed, everything had to be in-house. Well, under A.G. Lafley, they completely changed, and they said, we're going to become open innovators. And the simple philosophy is, look, we've got 150,000, 1.5 lakhs of great brains here in Procter & Gamble. But what's the population of the world? The world is 6 billion. Which pool of brain power would you rather have? 150,000 experts in FMCG or 6 billion brains? The answer should be obvious. Not all the good brains live at Procter & Gamble. There are plenty of good brains outside. And that's the thrust behind and the rationale for doing open innovation, is not only our ideas are good, other people's ideas are good. And now that we have, look at the technology we're using today. You and I can have a dialogue about innovation. I'm sitting here near my home, which I've just lived down the block in Kalkaji, and you're sitting in Chennai or Bangalore or Lucknow. This is great. And in the same way, there are many new technologies to facilitate and enable open innovation. But there are reservations. The issues come in primarily 2 areas, namely who gets to own the patents, the copyrights, the intellectual property rights in whatever is created by open innovation. With Linux, nobody does. I mean, I think the Linux Foundation is there, but it's not about owning the copyright, it's about the product itself. And the second one is, okay, not only who owns the inventions and the innovations, but who benefits economically? How are the profits split? So anytime you allow participation by an outsider, there's usually some cost associated with that in terms of what your profit can be from that innovation. That's not to say don't do it. It's just to say go in with your eyes open. If you're going to do open innovation, try to anticipate what are the revenue and profit consequences. Is it a revenue share? There are lots of options for dealing with outside innovators. So once again, these three things we've looked at, just to review what they are. The first we talked about was, am I willing to innovate for a longer-term horizon and accept the risk that maybe not all my research and development will pay off? Or am I willing to take lower rewards for more certainty? Secondly, should I do my own invention, or should I buy and acquire what other people, license in what other people have invented? And thirdly, if we're going to do invention here, are we going to do it by ourselves, or are we going to do it together with outsiders? And even academic institutions can be partners, individual inventors can be partners. We'll talk about that in a little more detail. So these are the 3 key strategic issues. Let me ask you at this point, if you have a comment, or less a comment, if you have a specific question, please type it in. I'm going to move ahead to the next slide, but I will see your question and try to address it. This is what I said. We'll talk in some specific detail about how open innovation can work in the world today. You and your company are the bullseye. You know your market, presumably. You know your technology, but look how small you are. You're just that little pea in the middle of a big pea patch. So you're going to get some good ideas and do some good R&D. But there are other people who can contribute to you. Let's briefly review the kinds of people that those might be. People who sell to you can actually help you innovate if they collaborate with you to design. I talked to the people down at Bosch, the automotive parts maker. They were given an assignment by Tata. Bring us a by Tata Motors, bring us a carburation unit that works to these specifications for this price point. And Bosch's first reaction was, we can't do that. Can't be done. But they thought better of it. They said, wait a minute. Tata believes it's possible to get a carburation unit in their Nano that's very low cost and still delivers such and such performance. If we don't do it, I bet they'll find somebody else who will. And so Bosch made the right decision. They decided to do R&D and innovation on behalf of Tata's. So Tata leveraged Bosch as a vendor or supplier, and the problem was solved. The carburetor was designed. It is being manufactured within the cost and performance requirements of Tata, and it's a profitable item for Bosch. So that's one way to leverage outsiders to help you innovate. Your customers. Beware of asking your customers what they want. That's not a good technique. Instead, find out what they require. Not what they ask for, but find out through insight what it is they really need. Nobody was asking Starbucks, please give us a place to sit. They would say, I want a delicious cup of coffee. I want it cheap. I want it fast. I want it flavored. Nobody would have asked Starbucks, give me a comfortable, funky place to sit and drink it. But he went out and understood the customers, that it wasn't the coffee, it was the user experience, and he innovated around that. So understand what it is that customers really require, what is value for customers. But after you give them the product that you think will meet their needs because of your insight, then you go back to them and you find out how they adapt it. They will improve on the product you deliver. They won't tell you, give us an X, because they don't know an X is possible. But when you invent X and you deliver it, they will immediately adapt it and improve it. So use them in that way. We talked about partnership with academic institutions. That's where you get a lot of pure R&D. Of course, there are always intellectual property issues. Good institutes have policies in effect that they share in the profits from what they develop. But it's often a very efficient and a cost-effective way to get innovation accelerated in your group by collaborating with a primary research facility. And I think the good news in India is more and more schools are going to begin doing this. It hasn't always been the way, but organizations are outsourcing research projects to technical institutes, IITs, to various scientific institutes, and they're getting good results. So that's a good trend. I expect it to increase here in India. Then we talk about communities of interest. If you are online connected to all the experts in management theory, you can learn a lot. If you're in line on a professional association, how to do retail, how to do automotive distribution, how to do chemicals, you may get a lot in just having a community. Open source development for software, we mentioned Linux as an example. And then finally, you can open things up to the general public and say, please give us your ideas. I know Mead Office Products does this. Every year they just have an open season where all ideas are welcome, and they evaluate them and they reject most of them, but occasionally they come up with a good idea. They become solicited ideas. You can actually mount contests and campaigns. I think you've seen some of them to look for innovative ideas for your company. Quite interesting. Again, the hit rate is very low, but if you get a big one, it's worth the trouble. Besides, your reputation goes up as an open innovator. You become known as an innovative company, and that has brand building value as well. Okay. Looking ahead, we were somewhere. Okay, we're on slide 18, so we'll go to slide 19. The last slide in this section, we'll talk about this issue of acquiring technology. And this, again, treating you as strategic managers. I don't know your actual positions or designations, but thinking that you may be a strategic manager at some level, making a decision about acquisitions for innovation purposes. I wouldn't be a consultant without a 2x2 matrix. That's the consultant stocks and trade. So looking at the two dimensions, I guess my cursor doesn't appear on your screen, but the vertical dimension is how sure do you need to be that you're going to make money on this technology, and the horizontal dimension, the ordinate, is the speed, how quickly you need to make money on this. So if something is very long term and you're not sure if it'll ever make money, but it seems interesting, you don't get that actively involved. You just let your money do the talking. You give them some money, you say, we'll preserve our rights that if you do come up with a winner, we get first right of refusal, or we get preferential prices, or we share in the profits, and you become a venture capitalist. Because your time and energy are more valuable where you have more return. You let the scientists do the work, you just take some financial risk. However, if it's something where you have a little more confidence, you're not sure that it's going to work, but you think that if it's going to work quickly, and you're going to be able to apply it. You can see getting to a yes or no point fairly quickly. Then you make a stronger agreement. You're in the lower right-hand box, and then you make it to a partnership. You realize that the partnership has a limited horizon. This is either going to work or it's not going to work. But if we have enough interest in the return that if it works, we don't want it left to chance who gets to profit. We want to be part of this. We want to commit some resources to it, and you become a partner of the other technology inventor or company. Okay? So now you have a heavier involvement. You're going to give it your best shot, put in your energy, put in some money, but it's still going to be outside of your organization. It's still going to be a partnership. So it'll go for a time, it'll work or it won't, and you'll reevaluate. On the other hand, that if you don't necessarily need the money quickly, but you think that it's really, you think that it's going to work, but it's a longer-term venture, and you realize it's going to take some time, that is when you form a subsidiary to own that technology. Why a subsidiary? Is because your investors are going to insist on quarterly returns. They're going to insist on annual returns, and this particular venture isn't going to make money for 2, 3, 4 years. It's nanotechnology, it's clean energy, it's something like that. You want it, you have, you know it's going to pay off when it comes into the market. You believe the market is there, but it's going to take time. So you get it out of your high-pressure, short-term focused business, which most businesses are, and you give it its own breathing room, its own space to grow. You set it up as a subsidiary. Finally, if there is a technology that is well enough advanced, so you're pretty sure it's going to return, and you're pretty sure it's going to return quickly, that's when you acquire it, because it fits with your time horizon. My business is running quarter to quarter, year to year. This business is going to contribute immediately, and we're sure it's going to contribute. It won't have a negative effect on profitability or margins, so it's a good strategic fit. So I hope that's clear. We're getting a question. I'm going to take that in a second, but I'll just briefly remind you of two companies. One is United Parcel Service, and the other one is Oracle. UPS has a venture fund for new technologies. They've put in over $25 million, and they've invested in about 10 or 12 companies last time I checked. Oracle has, on the complete opposite end of the scale. They've not done any venturing. They've bought, for billions of dollars, companies like PeopleSoft and Sun, right? So, I think Sun. I may be wrong. My memory for details is bad. But they've bought large technologies. They've gone the merger route. Now, which company would you say has been more successful at acquiring technology? You have to say Oracle. They're the ones who have grown and been profitable. UPS has really just played around with a tiny little fund, looked at some interesting technologies, and gotten very little from it, a little bit to help with their technology planning. So they probably have a positive return on their investment. It's not that they've lost the $25 million, but Oracle used the merger strategy because it waited until the technologies were mature and useful and fit with its strategy. UPS was taking the longer view. Their risks were a lot less. Their investments were a lot less, their risks were a lot less, but their returns have also been a lot less. So it's just a thought. Okay, let's see what Siddhartha has to say. And I am not sure how to get Siddhartha. Oh, there you are. Okay, great. I can hear you now. There you are.
Sir, right now I have a question with this slide. With the speed of a return desired,
yes,
the low in the venture fund as compared to the partnership fund.
Right.
Why is it so? Because in both the cases, the investment which has been done will be having have a desired return which has been predetermined in the something in a fixed written form or in a form of some which has been already been described or in our something of a business constitution.
I'm not
then
sure.
Why
Okay, well, finish your question.
Why the mutual fund speed is low as compared to the partnership fund?
Okay, it's the speed means how quickly do you want the return. Let's say there's something that I think might pay in 10 years. Why would I form a partnership? It's going to take a lot of my time, it's going to take a lot of my management talent, it's going to take a lot of my energy, a lot of my thought, and it won't pay off for 10 years. So I don't want to put a partnership for a 10-year payoff. But to spend $5 million out of a lack of crores company, okay, I can put $5 and $5 million. If it never pays, it's a rounding error on my balance sheet. So it's like how soon will it pay? Is it clear or not clear?
In both the cases, it will come in the equal. No, I will disagree with this point, sir.
Okay, so maybe I haven't made it clear.
Cases, the return, it will have an equal return, equal speed of return.
Okay, then there's a misunderstanding. Do I believe the technology is mature enough that it will pay off in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years? In other words, if I told you, sir, we're going into the nanotechnology business, I want Reliance Industries to have a nanotechnology business. In your best guess, I don't know if you're familiar with this, how many years will it be before nanotechnology is profitable? That will determine whether
that the venture capitalist has initially forecasted that it must have that much return only then it has invested into it, because the return is not we are not considering the return amount, we are considering about the speed of the return.
That's correct.
Not the actually the return which has been started, or something like the profit which has been started receiving into it. We are discussing that part, no?
No, I think you've missed the point. There's nothing in here about the profitability. Only how certain you are that it will or won't be profit, and how quickly. There's nothing in here about the amount. So if you're reading amount in this chart, you're misreading the chart. This is a two-variable chart. Only, it is an assumption that you will only invest in a technology if you believe the return will be satisfactory. So nothing gets into this matrix until you have concluded it will be profitable. So once you think, okay, this is a please let me finish. This is a technology that I believe will be profitable, but I have two more questions. How certain am I that it will actually be achievable? We know that if I could invent a magic transporter like on Star Trek, it would be vastly profitable. But I don't know for sure that it will be achievable. I'm not certain that the technology can be made. Secondly, I don't know how quickly it can be made. Those are the two things we're needing. We do. Am I sure it's going to result in something that is going to be profitable, or do I think the technology experiment will fail? That's the vertical. And the right one is, do I think it will succeed in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? So is it a little more clear now?
No, sir. In that case, there will be only the one quadrant rather than having 4-1. Because in the certainty and the speed of that quickly, it can't be dependent on anyone like me or someone. It is either some Dhirubhai Ambani or something like anyone who might be opening a business. Because it is just a business which is the performance matters, which will bring both the things.
Okay.
So certainty as well as the quickness.
I'm gonna try once more.
There can be only the.
Okay, let me speak. I'm going to try once more. Look at the headline on the slide. Okay. Some other
outside technology.
Some other technology is being developed somewhere else. I like that technology. How should I get it into my company? I have 4 options. I can put cash into it as a venture capitalist. I can buy it and set it up as its own wholly owned subsidiary. I can enter into a partnership agreement with that outside entity, or I can merge that entity into my company. Is it now clear? Those are 4 optional ways to acquire an outside technology that I like. The form of acquisition is all we are talking about here. Is it a little more clear now?
We are entering into then we are entering into a arena where we are finding it out when a business has to be started or why the new business, who to start and why to be started.
I think you've missed my point. This is an existing business outside of our business. We're not starting a business. We have acquiring a business.
Has to be. Then we have to, we are going to acquire a new business.
Acquire from somebody else.
It will depend upon.
Which one will you choose? Will you merge it into your company? Will you partner with it? Will you buy it and set it up as its own subsidiary? Or will you just give them some cash? Which one will you choose, Siddharth?
But it will again depend on the core competence of my business now.
I'm sorry.
What are my capabilities?
I'm sorry. You've forgotten what we're talking about. The heading of this one is, how do we innovate? How do we add innovation into our company? And from a strategic point of view, those 4 issues, those 4 boxes, the choice of 4 methods of acquisition do not necessarily depend on your core competency. They really depend, in my judgment, on these 2 values. How certain are we that the technology is going to work and achieve the return, and how quickly do we believe it will work? So let's leave it there. If you disagree, it's okay, but let's leave it there rather than have an ongoing discussion so we can finish the thing. I hope it's clear, but we'll let you go on that. Okay, so how do we hang up on Siddhartha there? Okay, I think it's done. Great. Okay, so let's see what Muralisundar has to say. Muralisundar, are you coming up? Yes.
Okay,
so tell me. Okay, we're cracking
I just said not describe
Okay, now we lost you. It's a little crackly. I think some connection is loose. I'm not hearing you. Hello? Subodh, what's happened? Okay, now when you move your earpiece, I hear a crackle. So I think it's a loose connection. I didn't hear any of your question. I'm so sorry. Now I can barely hear you. I'm going to hang up on you now. Let's see if you can get that fixed and come back to us, okay? So this is a strategic look at how you bring technology and innovation into your organization. All right? We'll move to the next one now. Slide 20. Okay? And we will come back if we get that question up there again. All right? So now you've decided you're going to do innovation. You've figured out whether you're going to do it in or out, alone or together with outsiders, and how you're going to do it. Now, what is going to make you a successful innovator? All right? 3 things are going to make your company successful at innovation. All right? We'll take a second to hear what Divakar has to say. Okay, Divakar, you are on the screen. Please tell us.
I was just wanted to put up a perspective what Siddharth was saying, that probably we can tell Siddharth that the same firm can be looked at as a VC if their perspective is short term in the very same technology, and then they can be looked at as a partnership if they are looking for a long haul in the same business or the same technology. So the very same entity can have the 2 roles depending on the perspective and the tenure of the perspective they are looking for, that technology or for the business they are looking to acquire into.
Thank you, Divakar. I hope that helps Siddharth. Okay, great. So let's go back to slide number 21. 3 things that you can grade your company on to see how successful you're going to be in innovation. Let's look at each one of them in some detail. What does it mean? We spent the beginning part of this class talking about what does innovation mean. I'll repeat what I said. You don't have to take my definition. You don't have to take anybody else's definition. But what you need to have is agreement on a definition. And this was the very first, one of the very first questions today. I think it was Rajiv who asked us about, I have this discussion with my team. Was it innovation? Was it not innovation? So he wanted examples from different industries, and I hope I've given a couple. This is what happens when organizations don't make it clear. They talk about innovation, but nobody really knows what it means, so they don't do it. And when it gets done, you have arguments. A guy says, I did this project and it's innovative. And the other guy says, no, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. And you waste all your time and energy arguing. This is not a productive use of your business. What helps is if the organization develops or receives from its management an agreed framework, an agreed idea, looking at the definition of innovation, that this is innovation and that's not, and agreeing on what the benefits are, why we are doing innovation, because people will innovate by nature, but a lot of people won't innovate for the reasons I'll discuss later. Your job as a manager is to make it easy for them to innovate. You have to be the supporter and encourager of innovation, and it starts by being crystal clear with your people what you mean when you say innovation. I work with various organizations. They have different definitions. Some of them I think are inadequate, and I tell them that. Others have very good definitions. But the most important, even if you have a bad definition, at least you have one. So people can say, yeah, I innovated, or no, I just imitated or did what I usually do. So your first critical success factor for your organization is for everyone to understand exactly what is meant when we say innovation and why we're doing it. Now, as a boss, as a CEO or an MD or whatever team leader you are, you then have to quit talking about innovation alone and start making it happen. And it requires two streams of resources. It requires money and it requires people. Ask yourself, who in your organization, well, we'll ask that in a minute, but ask about who has actually been assigned to innovate. What money is there to support innovation? What investments are there to support innovation? These are the policies also that help people to understand how innovation will be done in this place. These are the programs, the occurrences or the institutions in your organization where innovation takes place, the structures, the allocation to the assignments that are given that innovation can take place. These are the jobs of the senior leaders. These are the jobs of the people who need to set the tone for the organization. Let's look a little bit at how that works. We'll come back to it. Okay? So once you have structures in place for innovation to take place, once you have programs and policies in place, once you've given some resources, people have been assigned, money has been budgeted, then you wouldn't send, the analogy is, you wouldn't say to a bunch of people who had never been to engineering college, okay, I want you to design a new bridge, the Sea Link in Mumbai. I want you to design a new Sea Link bridge. They'd say, sir, we don't know how to do engineering. We've never been trained. You wouldn't do that. How many engineers are working in your company who have not been through engineering school and don't have at least a Bachelor of Engineering? None. But we make the mistake of telling people to innovate without giving them the training, because nobody thinks of innovation as a discipline. The fact is, innovation is a discipline just like engineering. There's theory behind it, and there are best practices, methods, and technology. So that if you're going to put a structure in place, you're going to recruit, you're going to assign, you're going to put budgets in place for innovation to happen, don't say, okay guys, go innovate, and not give them the training. Now the good news is, they don't have to go to school for 4 years, plus postgrad, plus PhD, to learn how to be an innovator. Most of the best practices of the world's leading corporations can be learned in a matter of weeks. Many of them can be covered in a 1 or a 2 day workshop, although nobody learns engineering in a workshop. You don't master innovation in a workshop. But if you do 1 innovation project or 2 innovation projects using those best practices, they're fairly easy and simple to master. Still, if the business does not have in mind that innovation is really skilled, disciplined, systematic, codified, theoretical and practical both, this education will never take place, and you'll get innovation, but it'll be more toward the old way, based on I hope, I think, I guess, I assume, I presume, and the hit rate will be low. I have this problem with some of my clients. So no company is immune, but I push and push and push and say, guys, you want to be world class. Don't just focus on this. Get the whole process, get all the methods, get all the technologies, and eventually they come around. And when they do, the results are fantastic. So again, if you want to look at a slightly more formal definition of the discipline of innovation, what it really consists of, so that your people can use the best practices from the Apples, the Nokias, the IDEOs, the 3Ms, and companies like that. This is what it's all about. It's an analysis, finding the user needs, the technologies. It's getting better ideas, and it's prototyping and getting user feedback. It's not too complex. It's powerful, but without these best practices, you're going to be less than best. And the goal is for everybody to be world class. Okay, let's keep moving. So those 3 success factors, okay? This is a good place to stop. You have to understand innovation, get everybody to agree what it means. You have to show your commitment by dedicating budget and personnel, putting policies, programs, and structures, and I'll talk some specifically about them in this last section. And then you have to equip the people with the best practices. We'll take a chance now to ask for your comments, questions, doubts, queries, anything you want to ask, particularly add maybe because of time. But if you have something you want to ask, that'd be great. All right, while you're thinking about that, we'll move on. Great, somebody's come up. Rajiv, let's double-click you there, and I'll put you live on my screen. And 3, 2, 1, go.
Am I?
Yes.
Am I audible?
You are on the air. All of India is watching.
David, in the last the critical success factors piece, understood the understanding and commitment portion of it. Just best practices portion of it. That's really. I think I got lost in my thinking. Are you suggesting that organizations should, or managers should, try and simultaneously learn a lot about the best practices and then just bring them all together? Shouldn't it be a bit more simpler?
Okay. Remember the analogy with engineering. If you give somebody a job to do, make sure he's trained to do it. The point is, if your people have never been trained in the best practices in innovation, they're not likely to be as successful as the Nokias, the Apples, and the IDEOs. Because those people are looking at a body of knowledge, of academic knowledge and practical knowledge that's been developed over 40 or 50 years. We know what works. We know what gives us better ideas. We know what gives us more profitable ideas. We know what gives us better insights. We know about getting ideas to market faster. These are well-known, proven best practices that can be taught. So that's the whole point in a nutshell, is that if you give people the job of innovating, train them, equip them with all those best practices. So they're doing better analysis, better invention, better validation, and faster launch. Is that a little more clear? And it's not that you as a manager need to be familiar with all of them. You can send your people out to academies. You can bring in consultants like me and others to train your people. Or we'll look at structures. You may have innovation sort of quarantined off to one side where all the wacky people live. And you say, I don't want to know what you're doing. Just come out of there in 2 years and bring me something profitable. And they can master all the techniques, and then you don't have to worry about it. So those are options.
Got it.
Now I think you got it. Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah, don't send a boy off to do a man's job, as the old American saying goes. In other words, give your people the training they need. Great. Anything more on that point? Suresh, we've got you. Suresh in Bangalore, you are live on the air. Speak. Bolo.
Okay. I think I got the answer. Because my question was, where does knowledge management fit in? So I think it's probably a structure or a methodology to bring out innovation.
You're quite insightful. It's going to appear. It's going to appear on a slide in a short while. Good for you. You're anticipating what we're going to say.
Okay.
Brilliant. Okay, great.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So let's go on to these details. Good. We've got about 45 minutes left, and this is probably the longest section, so I won't keep you late, but I also won't dismiss you early. So I hope I'm not boring you to death with this presentation. I hope you're getting some value. Okay. These are the policies and programs and structures I keep mentioning. This is once you, how are you actually going to manage your innovators? Not for you to become the trained innovator, but how are you going to manage your innovators since you are a strategic business leader? The policies, they come from the top, and they set the culture. And culture is huge. I've been a student of cross-cultural communication for all of my academic career, both in undergrad and in business school. I've been an observer of cultures, but culture is not limited to countries. India has many cultures that are subcultures of India, but you'll find that industries have cultures, age groups have cultures, metro and rural and second-tier cities have cultures, and even individual companies have cultures. So your job as a manager is to set the culture in your company so that it supports innovation and produces innovation. This is your job as a leader. Now, I said the CEO or the MD. That goes for any team leader. Whoever you have working for you, you have to set the tone for those people. You show by your policies and by your decisions what you really expect. You know, you can talk innovation all day long, but if you only evaluate people based on, key performance areas that don't include innovation, they won't do it. They'll say, yeah, that's a nice idea, but I'm only graded on whether I do my day job. So if you don't make a policy that makes innovation really accountable, it won't happen. And I have this struggle with some of my clients. They talk a great talk. They even put structures in place. You talk about knowledge management systems. But until it actually shows up on somebody's job description, it usually doesn't happen. Or it doesn't happen as much or as well as you'd like it to. And of course, you set the example. That doesn't mean you have to go out and become an inventor. That just means you have to be open to innovation. You have to welcome it. You have to talk about it. You have to encourage it. Then people get the idea. You set the tone. You also, in your actions, set the example. One of the key ways you do this is to remove the obstacles. Now, I usually ask, what do you think? Are the greatest obstacles attitudinal or institutional? And the answer is clear. The overwhelming problems are attitudinal. That is, what you do is, you begin to assume that people can't or won't innovate. What's actually happened is you've squelched it as a manager. And too many of our companies do that. They actually suppress innovation when they should be encouraging it. Now, that doesn't mean innovation isn't going to happen. It's just not going to happen here. Those same innovators will take their innovations and do them on their spare time, or they'll bring them to your competitor. I'm reminded, you talked about Maruti earlier. There was a fellow I was told about who was working at Maruti, and he came up with an innovation. And he said, sirs, I have an idea. They said, what is it? He says, why don't we make safety kits and put them in the back of our Maruti vehicles, and we'll sell more vehicles. Now, that's an interesting innovation. It's not the car business. It's the safety kit business. And what did Maruti say? Of course, they welcomed this guy with open arms, right? Not. They said, sir, we won't do that. We're in the car business. And he pleaded with them. He said, gentlemen, he says, look, if we just put this little, however many rupee kit in the back, people will buy more of our vehicles because they'll have a safety kit in them. And this guy, the manager said, look, you work on the shop floor. You don't know anything. We know everything. We're the experts. We're the managers. You just do your job. Well, eventually the guy got tired of asking. So you know what he did? He went out and started a company to make safety kits. And now he sells them to all the manufacturers. They get installed in the cars, and more cars get sold. But now all the other manufacturers have it, and not just Maruti. So the point is, the attitudinal barrier was in the management. My people are dumb. I mean, I hear this. It's saddening. You hear it in every country, but I hear it a lot in India. They're just the production workers. What do they know? You know, you have to ask yourself, what do I really think about the people who are the peons in my office? What do I really think about the production workers? What do I really think about the field sales staff? Would I trust them to innovate? Would I trust them to experiment? And if you don't, think again, because that's an attitudinal barrier. Obviously, there are institutional barriers as well. Let's spend just a little bit of time talking about some of these barriers now. On the attitudinal side, take a second, and I usually ask a workshop or a class, raise your hand if you've ever heard these sayings. And I name them off. I'm not creative. Just about everybody's hand goes up. And I say, if you've ever heard them. And I say, God forbid, if you've ever said them or thought them. I won't ask you that. I won't put you on the spot. Besides, we can't see your hand anyway. But as you take a minute to read through these, All of these attitudes you will find in corporations. You know, I just recently added the last two on the list. Notice the irony of those two last two. Notice the irony. It's so ironic. Some people don't want innovation because we've already tried that and it didn't work. Not realizing that the environment has changed, or the new way of doing it is going to be better than the old way you tried. So we've already tried that. We can't do that. But just as often, you'll hear the opposite. But we've never done that before. Well, duh. What's innovation? You've never done it before. So if your whole corporate culture is like Mukesh Ambani used to be, you prove it somewhere else, prove that it works, then we'll take it, you'll be less innovative. And by the way, even with that philosophy, they were tremendously innovative, but only in projects. How do we solve a project problem? They weren't doing product innovation, they weren't doing high-tech innovation, they weren't issuing so many patents, which is the secret to a lot of value. So look at these attitudes. If you find that, it's a good chance to go back and question, gee, is my company really being world-class in innovation? If these attitudes are common, probably not. All right? So hopefully you've had a chance to look at those while I was talking. Now, on the institutional side, these are some of the most common ones that we have seen. This is the result of a survey. The percentage of managers surveyed, senior managers surveyed, MD, director level, who have said this is a problem in our organization. Some of these are attitudinal. Risk-averse culture would be one. But things like long development times and lack of coordination, that is actually just an institutional thing. C.K. Prahlad, Professor C.K. Prahlad, in his book, The New Age of Innovation, says companies need to innovate for the new world reality of multiple sourcing and individualized delivery. The reason that many of them fail to do it is called broken logical links. And he was talking about systems in the company that are, the company may realize the need to manage multiple sources and deliver to individual customers, but the systems don't support it. We had a case here in Delhi some weeks ago, and I was in Gurgaon that day, but I was fortunate to come back from Gurgaon to Delhi later in the evening, because during the middle of the day, the streets absolutely flooded. It was taking an hour to 2 hours to get where you could usually go for 15 minutes. And the problem was the drains were getting all mucked up and blocked, and the water was flooding into the streets. So they investigated the problem, and they found out that the appropriate authority in the Metropolitan Corporation of Delhi had done its work. It had dredged and scooped out all of those drains. So why did the problem happen? Because there was a broken link to the other department which was supposed to take away the muck and never did. And so when the rain came, the muck just all ran down into the drains and clogged them up again, and caused a heck of a lot of inconvenience for a heck of a lot of drivers and travelers on that day. So if your company says we want to innovate and understands what it is, but the infrastructure, the systems are not there. You talked about knowledge management, the idea pipeline, moving projects through the system, assigning them, evaluating them, putting them through a good innovation process that you're using because you're using best practices. If that's not there, you can get lots of good ideas, you may have lots of goodwill, lots of good intentions, but you may never achieve world-class innovation. And it's a terrible shame, because many of your ideas might be great, but they don't see the light of day because there is some institutional missing logical link. Don't fall into that trap. Notice the least cited, too few ideas, dearth of ideas. Ideas are plentiful. Profitable ideas, not so much. Got the point? I hope you do. Okay? So manage people's attitudes with your policies and manage the institution with your policies and structures and showing your commitment. Moving on. What's the best way to manage innovation? Culturally speaking, make sure it's rewarded. This is basic management theory. Reward what you want to reinforce. I'll repeat that. Reward what you want to reinforce. I mean, this is so basic. But that doesn't necessarily mean throw a whole lot of money at it. You don't have to give 10 lakhs to somebody for an innovation. My adoptive Indian dad, S.C. Gupta, told me a story in ITI where a factory manager once offered 2 rupees for any suggestion. 2 rupees. And that was enough to stimulate lots and lots of suggestions. So even small monetary rewards can have a big effect. But they don't even have to be cash. People love to be recognized before their peers, before their families. I know a fellow who was an executive director in SAIL for many years, since retired. Now he's on the board of SBI. Very senior guy. I visited his home in Delhi, and he's got a whole corner of his room because the financial rewards when you were an ED of SAIL weren't that great when it was back in the day when he was so working. He's in his 70s now. He never made a whole lot of money from it. But he's got a cabinet full of rewards by Pandit Nehru presenting him something and this gold medal. They are so significant to him. Your workers are the same. They love those kinds of rewards. They love a chance to meet the senior executive. They love a certificate of appreciation. They love a trophy. They love a special gift, a small gift. Like every time I go to speak at an institute, they give me some thank you gift. I treasure those things. Obviously, they're not great financial value, but they motivate me. They show me that I'm appreciated. They're psychic rewards. Sometimes you can even give a new title. One fellow in an organization where I did some work was called Product Guru. He was a great innovator, and they gave him a title he enjoyed, Product Guru. So that meant something to him. So you can reward innovation. Once you start rewarding it, guess what? It's gonna happen. See, people won't do it if they think you're not really going to reward it. They'll try, and then when they see there's no reward for it, why waste my time? I'm getting rewarded for doing my job, obeying my boss, fulfilling my assignments. I'm not getting rewarded for innovation. I won't do it. So learn that lesson. What about these programs that you can put in? All right? I'll show you a list of some on the next slide, but just so you understand the concept, innovation programs can be temporary, or they can be permanent. Sometimes this Mead corporation I mentioned, they have an annual call for outside inventions. That's a one-off, but it's done repeatedly for a certain period of time each year. It's a way of bringing in innovation. Some companies have special innovation events. It can be a one-off, or you can have a program that is designed to get repeated innovation, and you will get it. The point is, a program doesn't mean words. It means an activity. It's something you do. Let's look at some examples. Let me explain some of these briefly because they may not be familiar to you. An innovation challenge is when you pose a question. You pose a goal. One of the examples I like to give, which was shared with me, I hadn't been familiar with it, by my young friend Anand Chatpar, who is the CEO of Brain Reactions, Mumbaikar, but he's living in USA. And he said, David, when they were going to have the World Exposition in Chicago in 1892-93, they had just seen the great success of the Paris Exposition of 1889. And during the Paris Exposition of 1889, they built one of the wonders of modern engineering, which is the Eiffel Tower. This is an 800-foot building, like almost 300 meters, and beautifully designed out of iron, so that the weight is distributed at just an amazingly low rate on the ground because of the tapering structure. Marvel of the world, just amazing. I mean, to this day, it's the most recognized landmark in the world. So just 3 years later, they were getting ready for the Columbian Exposition of Chicago, USA, and they said, what can we build that will be a centerpiece of our exposition? Well, that was the challenge. Okay. Now, most people were somewhat innovative, but they were really imitating. They weren't really, they said, well, let's have a tower that does this, or a tower that looks like that, or a tower this, or a tower, or a tower, or a tower. Everybody had tower on the brain. So they were trying to be innovative, but really they were imitating. But the challenge was still a success, because instead of a tower, they ended up with an innovation. And the fellow who did it got the idea at an engineer's breakfast where the challenge was posed. And he actually took his pen out and sketched his innovation that he got to brainstorm right on the spot. And what he did is he took train cars, he took bogies, and put a bunch of bogies inside of two circles. And he invented, his name was George Ferris, and he invented the Ferris wheel. And it was a huge success, and it made $750,000, which in today's money would be probably 50 crores of dollars. All right, it made $7 lakhs, which today would be worth 50 crores. It was hugely successful, and Ferris wheels are with us to this day, and all because somebody put out a challenge: who can innovate and give us a better building for our new exposition? So that's a challenge. You issue a challenge and see who fills it. Innovation contests are usually a little more broad. Who's got a good idea? Who is, between the ages of 20 and 35 who can come up with something? Who can, it's very broad. It doesn't have to be quite as specifically focused. So you can run a contest and you can offer a prize as opposed to, just a challenge, and see what you come up with and we'll buy it from you. A strategic innovation project is like a challenge, but you assign some of your people. You say, guys, we need a new product for next year. We need to go into the Chinese market. Figure out how to do it. That's a great assignment. One company said, there's a whole untapped market spending $15 billion a year affixing postage stamps to envelopes. Our company is already getting the franking machine business when the envelopes get franked by a machine, but we don't get any business from the people who put a stamp on an envelope. Go figure out some way to make money from them. How's that for a project? Would you like to accept an open-ended project like that? Go find some way to make money. That is a strategic innovation project. It has strategic value, and we are assigning people to do it. Quality circles are a well-known innovation. You may not think of them as innovation, but when you consider the economic value generated by the thousands and thousands of suggestions, in Japan, the average suggestions per worker per year are an unbelievable more than 100. I've actually heard outrageous numbers that I almost can't trust, that a worker will give 4,000 suggestions in a year. I find that almost impossible to believe, but I've heard numbers that I do trust, more than 100 suggestions per worker per year. My Indian clients, they're happy with one suggestion per worker per year, 2 suggestions. If you had 5,000 people, 10,000, 20,000 people in your organization, and they were giving that many suggestions per year, even 1 or 2, some percentage of them would be good suggestions. So quality circles and suggestion schemes, they're about the same. Quality circles are more focused on suggestions appropriate to my work, my production line, my department. Those are very focused suggestion schemes. And then somebody has asked earlier about knowledge management systems. Watch out. Knowledge management systems for keeping technical knowledge, keeping customer knowledge, they are useful, but they tend not to be widely used unless you make them mandatory and contemporaneous. You focus the knowledge management system around a specific issue and you require people to post and read. Then you'll usually get some value. Otherwise, it becomes a passive database that few people ever use. So look for active pipelines. Get this sense of motion into your knowledge management. You're likely to be more successful. Okay, let's see what Siddhartha in Lucknow has to say. Okay, Siddhartha, you're on the screen.
I actually didn't have a question. I just typed a trivia question about the Eiffel Tower and the Ferris wheel.
Okay.
I'm just curious at that time and now, like, what made more money, the Eiffel Tower, the Ferris wheel then and now?
Okay, well, it was a little hard for me to hear you because the mobile phone was beeping inside. Want to try one more time?
I'm sorry. Okay, I was just curious between the Ferris wheel and the Eiffel Tower. Then, which of the two made more money, and now which of them make more money? Because even though both were innovations, the Eiffel Tower is something that's more memorable in today's time. I don't know. Just curious.
Well, the correct answer to your question is I don't know, but I don't know which made more money, but I would call them both phenomenally successful. You can't really compare because the Eiffel Tower is one building which has stood for 121 years, or 120 years this year. The Ferris wheel stood for about 25 years and then it burned. But there are Ferris wheels in every amusement park around the world. So both have had a tremendous impact. The Eiffel Tower is still memorable. It's still a fantastic tourist attraction. It still does what it meant to do, and the Ferris wheel still does what it meant to do, attract riders to come. The Eye of London, one of the leading attractions, it's nothing but a Ferris wheel.
Right.
So both were amazingly successful, and both are wonderful innovations. Okay? Great. I'm sorry I cut you off, but I think we should go on. Okay? So I hope that, and you might have a specific question about one of these, but these are just examples. Any other program you can imagine can be invented and you can use it. But these are specific activities. You can have Innovation Day, you can have Innovation Fairs where people distribute, you can have Innovator of the Year contest, Siemens does that. Lots of things are there. You can have an awards banquet for those who have filed patents or done innovations. Anything is there. Use your creativity. Okay, now we go on to these structures. And as I tried to say earlier, and I remembered it was on a later slide, you have to ask the question, where does innovation sit in my company? Who actually has the task or the assignment or the accountability for innovating? So once you've asked those questions, now you can look at where should innovation really lie? Where should it sit in my company? And some of the options for that. First question before we actually answer the sit question is, who should we assign to innovate? And this is a poll, all right? And everybody has to vote. That's Australian law. Voting is mandatory. If you don't vote, I give you a fine. I don't know how I collect it since you're in another city, but let's see a quick vote, okay? You could only recruit one person to be your innovator-in-chief. You want to make sure that your innovations are excellent and profitable. Will you recruit someone who is a dreamer? You can only recruit one. Or will you recruit someone who is a realist? Okay, please vote by typing in your request. Dreamer or realist? Dreamer or realist? Okay, let me see if I can get that dialog box up on my screen so I can... okay, there's my mail, right? Yeah, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. We had something from Anupama and I never got to it. I'm so sorry. Okay. Nah, okay, somebody's cheating. See, we're going to get you for election fraud. There it is. There it is. So, Suresh, you're cheating. You're cheating. Okay. Suresh, you have to vote again. that option was not on the. You have to have only one. Okay, we're up to about 9 votes. I think we have to have 14 before we're done.
Realist.
Okay, he's changing to realist. He wants a realist. Okay. It's running neck and neck. It's running neck and neck. The vote counting is, who's our election commissioner? The vote counting is there. No, okay, let's see. Get that. Oh, that's the male. Which one is the votes? Okay, there's the votes. Thank you. Raised hands. Okay, that's right. Okay. I don't think we got everybody to vote. Let's vote. Come on. All right, I'll give up. The rest of you have to pay a fine. We had votes for realist. 1, 2, 3. I think I lost some votes. There are more. I have to scroll down. Can I scroll down on this? How do I scroll down, Subodh, to see the rest of the votes? Oh, because Suresh was there before. All right, no problem. Okay. So I guess we have 10, and I think it's 6 dreamers and 4 realists. So what have I learned? I've just learned which of you are dreamers and which of you are realists. Because those of you who are dreamers probably voted for dreamers, and those of you who are realists probably voted for realists. Not necessarily. Okay, so I think actually Suresh probably had the best idea. Let's see, where is my... Okay, can I get my presentation back, Subodh? You'll release it to... Yep, okay. Okay, so dreamers are realists. The fact of the matter is, everyone can innovate. And I think we're a couple more after that. The dreamers are the ones who usually come up with the big ideas. But they're wacky and crazy and they don't work. The realists are the ones who come up with the incremental improvements because they know they'll work, but they don't produce great value. So the trick is to have both. You have the idea generators and you have the idea improvers. So we'll move ahead. Okay. And we have programs and we have these dreamers. Okay, you really need both. And this is a very useful diagram based on input from Dr. Min Basadur, who lives in Canada. Basically, every one of us can be an innovator using this model. Most of us will gravitate to one of these quadrants or two adjacent quadrants. So your dreamers are those who are out there looking at inquiry and invention. They're looking at new ideas, new opportunities, new solutions, new concepts. They're dealing with the abstract. They're dealing with the stuff that isn't invented yet. That's why they're the dreamers. The realists are dealing with what already exists. So once these right side people have come up with their concepts, these guys who are the realists turn them into real-world solutions, refine them, improve them, make them better, and actually launch them so they get out into the world. So in your innovation team, in your company, whether it's in one department or everywhere in your organization, you're going to want to make sure that it's a collaborative effort between people who are able to handle all four of these quadrants effectively. By the way, here's some good insight for you. If you had to do a team with less than all four and your goal was business success, you would choose the top two. If you had to do a team with fewer than four and your goal was disruption, you would charge the right-hand two. They're going to come up with the disruptive things, but they may not work. If you have the top two, you're going to have fewer ideas, but they're probably going to work, and that's probably what you care about. So that's some good insight. Wouldn't you know it, my two are the bottom two, so you don't need me. So I guess I'm useless, worthless. No, that's not true. I actually have 2 patents to my credit. I actually have $4 million business innovations to my credit, and I help my clients to do things like that. So even we bottom 2 people, we're useful for something. And so understand it's a end-to-end process. You need strength in all 4, and each person can be strong in 1 or strong in 2 adjacent, never 2 opposite. Okay? So these are, when you're recruiting and when you're thinking about where and how to set it up, these are the factors you look at. Some ideas of what you can call an innovator so that it ends up in his job title or his job description. This just gives you a chance to look at how many of innovative firms have named their people in the past. You may see it in market research, looking for customer insight. You may see it as R&D, looking for technology innovation. You have research scientist and engineer. You might be a chief technology officer. These are pretty, even the marketing people can be innovators if they're looking at innovative strategic marketing, better ways to price, position, distribute, and develop products. But some of the more fun ones, I mentioned to you, Product Guru, if you look at the right-hand column, most of these, some companies actually have a chief innovation officer. I think it makes a big difference if your company can have a senior level person who's a chief innovation officer. Depending on how much clout, authority, and skill you give that person can be very effective. She can bring out great innovation from all the departments, or she can be totally ineffective if you just give her the title and put her off in a cubbyhole and never ask her to do anything. What about customer experience director? Remember what the key success was for both Kingfisher and for Starbucks? The innovation was branding, and the innovation was a customer experience specifically in Starbucks, but the delivery was, again, customer experience in both cases. And I like to tell audience, this is an insight that's not going to appear on a slide, so you may want to note it. We've gone long past the natural resource economy. We're out of agriculture and mining as the staples of growth. In the 1750s, we reached the Industrial Revolution, which made manufacturing the source of growth, but now that's a commodity. And since 1950, we've been in the knowledge economy. But even knowledge is portable. We have KPO in India. The next step is the experience economy. Knowledge won't necessarily differentiate you, but your ability to deliver an innovative customer experience is probably the secret to great growth and success in the future. So keep an eye on that, strategically speaking. Look for innovations in the area of customer experience. That's why that title is there on the list. Director of Future Strategy. Do you have a human factors engineer? Do you have a manager of marketing innovation? These are just some options that you can do. And as far as the way you structure it, you can actually, as I said, you can have innovation sit with one individual. You can say NPD is where we do it, new product development. You can say it fits in R&D, but the pressure on R&D is usually going to be to develop short-term innovations. Get us next year's product model. Get us a new flavor of our snack foods. Get us a new chemical that we can deliver to that niche. The business is going to pressure R&D to work in the short term. The fourth option on this list is actually to hive off a technology after next lab to work on long-term innovation and let your engineers do their short-term R&D unhindered, so there's no confusion. I actually worked in one of the world's leading innovation labs looking at long-term horizons, not the next invention, not the next model, but a new product, a new market. That issue, go make money off of people who use postage stamps, that was assigned to the innovation lab. And we came up with something, a way to make money. Didn't fit with any of our other products, but it used the knowledge that was resident in our organization and resident in this advanced lab to come up with new products that would take 1, 2, and 3 years to develop and more. So you can just see these are a few of the types of structures that can exist. Quality circles, you can have them even in non-manufacturing departments. That's a fairly new discovery. You can have a quality circle in customer service. You can have a quality service in the canteen. You can have a quality circle in I don't know, you can have a quality circle in your accounting department. No reason why not. Everyone can be an innovator using that 4-stage model. So you may have a specific function to manage intellectual property if you're doing a lot of inventing, a lot of patenting. These are just some options. Well, it is 10 minutes to 9. That is my last slide that I have prepared for you. So we've done, I'm sorry, there's one more. I forgot all about it. I thought 40 was thank you. So this is good. This is a model from Booz & Company. It used to be called Booz, Allen & Hamilton. It shows where is your company going to get innovation strength from. In which area is your company going to have strong innovation capabilities? We talked about customer insight. It's at the top. Knowing what customers want. That was the secret to Starbucks. Customers wanted a place to relax. Notice that they've had nothing in their organization that's innovative. They have very little global influence. That's global network means inputs into the innovation project. Yeah, there was that one thing, they got it from France, but since then, it's not that they've gotten all these great ideas from other countries, and they had no particular foresight about what the trend of the future was. They just got one deep customer insight. What was the value of that insight? Only several $1 billion. So even if you're only strong in one of these areas, you can make billions of dollars. But you've got to have that great insight. Let's say you have, like Procter & Gamble. They have a great innovation organization. They've opened it up. Their goal under A.G. Lafley was that instead of everything invented here, 50% of their new product ideas had to come from outside. Several years ago, when Lafley was still there, they had reached 43%. I read subsequently that they have exceeded 50%. And they are the world's #1 FMCG, consumer products company, because they have an innovative organization. They get their ideas from all over and they quickly get them into the market. Vijay Mallya, he had the opposite things. He had global network, he had ideas from England, and he had future foresight. I know which way India is going to move. India may be a strict buy it for me cheap, value for money today, but in future there are going to be value, not value for money clients, but money for brand, money for luxury, money for distinctive, money for good customer experience. He got that. He had future foresight, and it enabled him to innovate. So chances are your company can be strong in one or more of these areas so that you are going to be able to deliver innovation, and your structure is meant to overcome the attitudinal barriers. It's meant to reward innovation, as we've said. It's meant to make sure that innovation gets assigned and delivered, and it's meant to make sure that you can cultivate your strengths. So that officially concludes the presentation part. We have a few minutes left. I'm willing to stay for about 6 or 7 minutes, and we've got people lining up now. Let's talk with Viskumar from Chennai. And as of now, you are on the screen, so speak right into your mic and tell us what you have in mind. Okay, I can't hear you. Please put your mic right up next to your mouth. Now I think I can hear you.
Am I audible?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Okay, so from the definition of the innovation, the way I understood is if you understand the customer need or requirement, and through the lean thinking on that requirement, so maybe you can come up with the new innovation.
Lean is tell us how to make what exists more efficient. Innovation is find something new to solve the problem. Both are valuable. Six Sigma and Lean are part of innovation, but understand that's a limitation. If you're working that I know what the customer requires, you probably don't have the whole picture. The beauty of innovation is it goes beyond what the customer can tell you. Don't always trust what the customer says. They can't tell you what they need. The famous story is Henry Ford, who introduced the automobile to the U.S. Somebody said to him, Mr. Ford, before you brought out your horseless carriage, did you go to people and ask them what they needed for their transportation? He said, no, ma'am, I did not. If I had asked them what they needed, they would have said, I need a faster horse. So he didn't look at what they required. He looked at their life and said what they really need is to get to places faster. What they really need is something that will get them to places that they don't have to have it eat their backyard and eat their grass, and they don't have to buy hay for it. They weren't thinking the customer doesn't know what he needs. That's what you've got to remember. In a very limited situation, the customer can give you requirements. You're much smarter going way beyond the requirements and finding out the customer's life. You can deliver technical goods that give a lousy customer experience, and you will fail. You can give adequate technical goods or new technical goods that meet a customer's experiential needs in a new way, and you will succeed. Precisely. Remember coffee, they would have said, I want it faster, I want it hotter, I want it cheaper, I want it bigger, I want it vanilla. They would have never told you, I want it in a plush chair with jazz music. But that guy innovated. See the difference between meeting the requirements as stated and innovating? I hope it's clear. Okay, let's move on. Somebody else is next. Sandeep is there. Sandeep. Oh, that was older. Okay, who's there now wants to talk? Somebody is there? Okay, we got about 5 minutes. Okay. I don't know what that thing means. Somebody wants to ask on PLC. What does that mean? Okay, Divakar, you're on. I can see you. Please talk.
Yeah. Sir, this was pertaining to the aspect we are looking at, say, Starbucks or you getting imitated. So you are there in a phase wherein you are into growth and there is a high margin. So we had a case study for Intel wherein we see that Intel has this luxury of revisiting this growth phase every 12 months or 18 months by coming up with the new products. So they beat the market and they probably and cash it every 18 months also. But for industries like say Starbucks or anything else wherein the possibility of high product innovation is not very high and it is more of commodity. What do you think that the company should be?
I think we addressed this a little bit earlier. The point is, if you're in a business like Saffola, edible oils are a commodity. So you have to find something other than the product, or sometimes the product, you find a new formula, But usually the innovation that pays off is not in the technology itself. Usually it's something that has to do with this bigger question of user experience. That is a key lesson for innovators. The value was not in the oil. The value was in the sense that if I use this oil, I'm going to be healthier. It's in the marketing of the oil. So that's the advice. You find a better way to deliver. There's a beautiful case study. I will share it. Unfortunately, it's going to use the last of our 2 minutes. I can stay on if it's permissible. If not, I believe you can get my contact data from Dr. Kapoor. You can communicate with me separately. Basically, Motorola and Toshiba had to sell precisely the same silicon chip to Ford Motor in its engine control. Had to be precisely the same, otherwise it wouldn't work. So there was no product information permitted. What won the deal for Toshiba was that instead of measuring quality by defect rate and on-time delivery and such, they measured it by how does the factory worker interact with my product? How big is the box? What labeling is on the box? When you open it up, can you quickly tell which engine it goes to? They solved problems like that, and they knocked Motorola out of the account by delivering a better customer experience in a high-tech industrial environment. It wasn't about the technology. It was about the user experience. So learn that lesson no matter what business you're in, even if you can transform your commodity into a better user experience, better credit terms, easier invoicing, online just-in-time delivery, better units of packaging, more durable packaging, easier to unload with the forklift, a delivery on the job site instead of on the dock. Cement companies have started doing that. The cement is a commodity, but if I can deliver it to you on your job site instead of in your warehouse, that's a benefit for you. So always be innovative at the experience level in addition to the product level. Okay, I think we're down to about a minute and a half. I don't know if I should take one more question. Okay, let's see if we can get one in really quickly. Let's, okay, Amit has a quick question that he's typed out, but I couldn't read the whole thing. Amit, tell us.
Yes,
quickly as you can.
I would be short here.
Yep.
Yeah, I would be short here. You know, we have actually talked about industries which are already established. If we talk about industries which are about to establish their business, then how exactly do we think like innovation is all about creating opportunities in competition? You know, we have investment, we have strategy, management, vision, technology, everything. But I mean to say, if I am going to start some process in recruitment process in New York, New Jersey, I'm going to ask 10 people. They will say, okay, you should start. But because I'm experienced in the process, I know if I'm going to start there, then I'm going to fail. So my question is innovation is all about in penetrating the competition, or is it about it's all about being realistic or imaginative, or by being realistic we can think?
Levy, you've used all the time in asking your question, so I'm going to give a really rough, quick answer. Innovation starts with insight.
Sure.
First, you have to figure out what will make customers feel they're being valued, what will deliver value to customers, and what technologies are there to do it. Secondly, it's about inventing original ways to deliver that value. And thirdly, it's about quickly finding out whether you're really delivering the value you thought you did and making your product or service better until it actually does deliver the value profitably. That's innovation in a nutshell. Thank you. You've been a great class. Please do get in touch with me offline. Get my contact data from Dr. Kapoor. It's actually on your slide now. I'll put it on so you can take it there.
Thanks a lot.
And I would look forward to corresponding with any of you. If I can help you personally, if I can help your company, please only let me know. That's up on the screen. And that's a hearty dhanyavad, a hearty thank you from me.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, so take down my mobile, take down my email, and then Subodh can cut off the connection. Okay. Subodh, can I answer that one in writing? Can Can I answer that in writing?
Would like.
Oh, Suresh, I've got you online. I don't have to answer you in writing. Sure. Well, I don't have it with me, but I could go over and get it. You could read my book. It's called The Executive's Guide to Innovation. It talks about the mind of the innovation manager.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Can you please repeat the book?
The Executive's. That's too thin. I'll have to do it in this marker. There are two titles. The first one is by me. Okay?
Thank you very much.
No, that's fine. We'll hang him up. And we'll go to that other one was there? Yes. Okay, Siddhartha, let me just give you, and we'll wind up in 1 second. We talked about this. This is similar to the grid on importing a technology. Importing a completely new business. Dr. Vijay Govindarajan has written a wonderful book on that called 10 Rules, which I will just put up on the line. 10 Rules for Strategic Innovators. That's Vijay Govindarajan. And if you don't want to read the whole book, I would basically say there's no reason not to pursue it if you think that you want to. If you want to pursue it and you think it's going to be profitable, then I would never let the attitudinal barrier, we've never done that before, I would never let that stop you.
Right.
Yeah. So the point is, how can you manage it effectively if you don't have experience in that industry? And then I would do a study of Govindarajan. The classic example of that is in the 1920s in U.S., the railroads were king, and these other guys came to them and said, hey, we've got a great idea for you guys. And they said, no thanks, we're in the railroad business, we're not doing what you do. Well, the new idea was the airlines, and they missed the chance to own and operate the airlines because they said, no, that's not in our core competency. So don't make that mistake. They missed billions of dollars. They could have owned the airlines. Okay? All right, that's going to wrap it up. Thanks to all who stuck around, and have a great night, and hope to hear from you all.